Mates are forever. The bond cannot be broken. That's what every wolf is taught from the moment they first shift. That's what Arya believed with every fiber of her being. But standing in the center of the Silvermoon Pack's grand hall, with hundreds of eyes watching her humiliation, she would learn that some bonds are worth less than the pride of an ambitious man. And sometimes, the monster you've been taught to fear is the only one who sees your worth. Chapter 1. The Golden Sun's Shame. Arya had always known she wasn't enough. It wasn't something anyone said outright, not in the Silvermoon Pack, where unity and strength were preached like gospel from the Alpha's pulpit every full moon. But there were subtler ways to communicate worthlessness. The way her mother's eyes would slide past her to linger on her sister, Celeste, whose golden hair caught sunlight like a crown. The way training instructors would demonstrate techniques on other wolves, saving their praise for those with prestigious bloodlines. The way pack members would step aside for Celeste in the corridors but expect Arya to move first. Arya was the spare, the afterthought, the daughter born with fur too dark, eyes too ordinary, a wolf spirit too quiet to command attention. But none of that had mattered, not really, because she'd had a secret that kept her warm through 18 years of cold shoulders and dismissive glances. She had a mate. The bond had snapped into place 6 months ago, during the autumn festival. Arya had been serving drinks, as unmated wolves of lower rank always did, when she'd locked eyes with Dorian Silvermoon across the bonfire. The Alpha's son, golden-haired, broad-shouldered, with eyes like melted amber, and a smile that made every unmated female in the pack sigh with longing. And he was hers. The bond had seized them both with such force that Dorian had dropped his cup, wine spreading across the ground like blood. For one perfect moment, Arya had seen recognition in his eyes, not just of the mate bond, but of her. Like he was truly seeing her for the first time. Then his father, Alpha Thorn, had called his name, and the shutters had come down. "Not here," Dorian had said, his voice rough. "Meet me at the eastern border." Midnight. She'd gone, of course, and he'd been there, pacing like a caged animal, his wolf so close to the surface that his eyes flickered between human amber and wolf gold. "This is real," she'd whispered, touching the place over her heart where the bond hummed like a living thing. "I know." He'd caught her hand, pressed it flat against his chest, so she could feel his heart racing. "I feel it too. But Arya, my father has plans. Alliances. There's a marriage arrangement with the Nightshade Pack's daughter. It's been negotiated for years. But the mate bond, I know." His grip had tightened. "Just give me time. Let me handle my father. We'll figure this out." 6 months. She'd given him 6 months of secret meetings in the forest, stolen kisses under moonlight, whispered promises that soon he'd make their bond public. Soon he'd stand before the pack and claim her as his mate, and all the years of being invisible would be washed away in the recognition that the moon goddess herself had chosen her. 6 months of not yet, and I need more time, and you have to understand the political situation. 6 months of watching him smile at Elena Nightshade during her diplomatic visits, while Arya served them wine with trembling hands. But tonight was supposed to be different. Tonight was the mating ceremony, a grand celebration where unmated wolves could declare their intentions, where chosen pairs would be blessed by the pack, where bonds would be made official before the moon goddess and the gathered packs. Dorian had sent word through her sister. "Tonight, I'll make it right tonight." So Arya had done something she'd never done before. She'd borrowed one of Celeste's dresses, a deep blue that brought out the silver flecks in her dark eyes. She'd braided wildflowers into her black hair. She'd stood before the mirror and tried to see what a future Luna might look like. The great hall blazed with candles and moonlight streaming through crystal windows. 5 packs had gathered: Silvermoon, Nightshade, Ironwood, Shadowfen, and even a small delegation from the distant Blood Moon Pack, though everyone knew they kept to themselves in the northern territories. Arya stood at the edge of the crowd, her heart a wild thing in her chest. Any moment now, Dorian would step forward, he'd call her name. The bond would be recognized, and she'd finally matter. Brothers and sisters of the gathered packs. Alpha Thorn's voice boomed across the hall. Tonight we celebrate the bonds that strengthen our kind. Tonight we witness the joining of souls chosen by the moon goddess herself. Arya's hands twisted in her skirt. Where was Dorian? She scanned the crowd, finding him near the front, standing beside Elena Nightshade. The Nightshade Alpha's daughter was beautiful in the way Celeste was beautiful, golden and glowing, like she'd been dipped in sunlight. It is my great honor, Alpha Thorn continued, to announce the mating of my son and heir, Dorian Silvermoon, to Elena Nightshade, uniting our packs in strength and prosperity. The words hit like a physical blow. Arya's vision tunneled. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening. She watched, frozen, as Dorian stepped forward. As Elena took his hand, as the crowd erupted in cheers. Move, her wolf snarled. Do something. Her feet carried her forward before her brain caught up. The crowd parted not respectfully, but in confusion. Who was this nobody interrupting the ceremony? Wait. The word tore from her throat. The cheering died. Hundreds of eyes turned to her. Alpha Thorn's face darkened like a thundercloud. But Arya only looked at Dorian, at her mate, who'd gone pale as death. Dorian. Her voice shook but held. Tell them about us. Silence. Absolute, crushing, silence. Dorian's throat worked. The bond between them pulled taut, singing with distress. For one heartbeat, she thought he'd do it. She thought he'd choose her. Then, Elena's hand tightened on his arm, and something in his face shifted. I don't know what you're talking about, he said. The bond screamed. You're my mate! Arya's voice cracked. She pressed her hand to her chest, where the bond burned like acid. You feel it too. I know you do. Enough! Alpha Thorn's command cracked like a whip. He descended from the dais, his power rolling over the crowd, making lesser wolves drop their eyes. You dare interrupt a sacred ceremony with these delusions. They're not delusions. Arya turned to the gathered packs, desperate. The mate bond. There is no bond. Dorian's voice cut through her words like a blade. He stepped forward. And oh, the expression on his face was worse than anger. It was pity, disgust. Arya, you're confused. I've been kind to you, perhaps too kind, and you've mistaken it for something more. No. The word came out small, broken. This is embarrassing, Elena said, her voice honey-sweet with false sympathy. The poor thing is clearly delusional. Someone should escort her out before she makes more of a fool of herself. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Not kind laughter. Cruel, mocking laughter that stripped Arya bare. She looked at Dorian, really looked at him, saw the calculation in his eyes, the choice he was making in real time. Say it, she whispered. If there's no bond, say it. Reject me properly, before the moon goddess, say the words. Something flickered in his eyes. Fear, maybe. Because formal rejection was serious. It would hurt them both, sever the bond with agony. But it would also prove the bond existed in the first place. Alpha Thorn's hand came down on Dorian's shoulder. A warning, and Arya understood. If Dorian rejected her formally, he'd be admitting the bond was real, admitting he'd chosen politics over his mate. The gathered packs would know him for an oath-breaker. Better to make her seem crazy. Better to let everyone think she was a delusional nobody with a sad crush. I, Dorian Silvermoon, son of Alpha Thorn. He paused, and for one moment, the bond between them sang with such pain that Arya gasped. Then his face went cold, carved from marble. I reject you, Arya Blackwood. You are not my mate. You are nothing to me. The bond shattered. It wasn't like cutting a rope or breaking a chain. It was like having her chest opened and her still beating heart ripped out. Arya's knees hit the marble floor. Agony lanced through every nerve, white-hot and merciless. She heard screaming and realized dimly it was her own voice. Through the pain, she felt her wolf, writhing, howling, dying inside her. When she could breathe again, gasping and shaking, she looked up to find Dorian had turned away. Elena was pressed against his side, whispering comfort. Alpha Thorn was already continuing the ceremony, as if Arya didn't exist. She'd been erased. Arya stumbled to her feet. She had to get out. Had to. The crowd didn't part for her this time. She had to push through bodies that felt solid as walls, past faces twisted with mockery or pity or cruel satisfaction. Did you see her face? Imagine thinking the alpha's son would want someone like her. Always knew she was touched in the head. Finally, she reached the doors, shoved them open into cold night air. Her wolf whimpered, broken and bleeding inside her mind. Run, Arya thought. Just run. She shifted mid-stride, her dress tearing away as black fur erupted across her skin. Her wolf was smaller than it should be, weakened by the rejection, but it was still faster than her human form. The forest swallowed her. She ran without direction, without purpose, just the desperate need to be anywhere but there. She didn't know how long she ran. Long enough that the moon shifted overhead, long enough that the pain in her chest became a constant throb instead of sharp agony, long enough that she didn't notice she'd crossed the border, not until she smelled it pine and smoke, and something wild and dangerous that made her damaged wolf freeze in instinctive terror. Blood moon territory. Oh no. She tried to turn, to run back the way she came, but her wolf was too weak, too slow. The rejection had taken everything from her. A low growl rumbled through the darkness. Then another. Then 6 more. Wolves melted out of the shadows, massive and dark-furred, their eyes reflecting moonlight like coins. Border patrol. And she was an intruder. Arya's wolf dropped low, showing her throat in submission. She couldn't fight, couldn't run, could barely stand. The largest wolf stepped forward. And even in her broken state, Arya recognized an alpha when she saw one. He was huge, easily twice her size, with fur so black it seemed to drink the moonlight. His eyes were strange, she realized dimly. Not the amber or gold of most wolves. Silver, like starlight, like ice, like nothing she'd ever seen. He shifted, and Arya wanted to look away. Naked male shifters were common enough, but this felt too intimate, too vulnerable, but she couldn't move. He was perhaps 30, with dark hair and sharp features and a scar cutting through his left eyebrow. His body was carved from violence and survival. This was him. The monster alpha. Kale Bloodmoon. The alpha who'd been raiding pack territories for years. Who'd killed his own father to take power. Who every mother used as a threat to misbehaving pups. Behave or the Bloodmoon alpha will take you. And Arya had just stumbled, weak and broken and alone, into his territory. Shift, he commanded, his voice like gravel and smoke. Arya's wolf whimpered but obeyed. The shift hurt more than it should, her body still screaming from the rejection. She huddled on the forest floor, trying to cover herself, trying to be small. Kale's eyes traveled over her, clinical and assessing. They lingered on her face. She must look terrible. Eyes swollen from crying, face blotchy and red. "You're Silvermoon," he said. Not a question. She nodded, mute with fear. "And you're injured. I can smell the blood." His head tilted. "But no wounds. So this is..." Understanding flickered across his face. A rejection. Fresh. Within the hour. Arya's throat closed. She managed another nod. Something complicated passed through his expression. Then he did something that made absolutely no sense. He removed his jacket, black leather, worn soft, and held it out to her. "Put this on. You're coming with me. Please." Arya found her voice, hoarse and broken. "Please, just let me go. I didn't mean to cross the border. I wasn't thinking. I'll leave. You'll die," Kale said flatly. "A rejected wolf, weakened and alone in neutral territory. You'll be dead before dawn. Rogues can smell rejection like blood in the water." "I don't care," she whispered, and meant it. His eyes narrowed. Then he crouched down, bringing himself to her level. This close. She could see his eyes weren't just silver. They were fractured with color, like broken mirrors. "Here's what's going to happen," he said, his voice somehow gentle despite its roughness. "You're going to put on my jacket. You're going to come to my territory. You're going to let my healer look at you. And tomorrow, when you're not actively dying from rejection sickness, you can decide what happens next. Understand? Why?" The question came out plaintive. "Why would you help me?" Something ancient and weary flickered across his face. "Because," Kale Bloodmoon said, "I know what it's like to be thrown away by people who should have protected you." He stood, holding out the jacket again. A choice. Behind him, his patrol wolves waited, still and silent as statues. Arya's hands shook as she reached for the jacket. It was warm from his body heat and smelled like pine smoke. And something else, something that made her broken wolf lift its head for the first time since the rejection. Safe, her wolf whispered. He smells safe. Which was insane. This was the monster, Alpha. The killer. The enemy. But he was also the only person who'd offered her kindness tonight. Arya pulled on the jacket and stood on shaking legs. Chaol nodded once. Let's go. As they walked deeper into Blood Moon territory, Arya looked back once toward the direction of Silvermoon Packlands, toward the life she'd lost, the mate who'd destroyed her. Then she turned forward and followed the monster into the dark. If stories like Arya's remind you that worth isn't determined by those who reject you, subscribe to join others who believe that sometimes the monster you fear sees you more clearly than those who claim to love you. Chapter 2. The Blood Moon Compound. Arya had expected dungeons. That's what all the stories said about Blood Moon territory, that it was a fortress of cruelty, where prisoners languished in cells and the weak were culled without mercy. That Chaol Blood Moon ruled through fear and violence, his compound a monument to brutality. The reality was different. The Blood Moon compound sat in a valley surrounded by ancient pines, built from dark wood and stone that seemed to grow organically from the mountain itself. It wasn't pretty, not like the Silvermoon Pack's grand hall with its crystal and marble, but it was solid, permanent, a place built to weather storms. Wolves moved through the grounds with purpose, nodding respectfully to Chaol as he passed, but not cowering, not showing the fearful submission she'd expected. This way, Chaol said, guiding her toward a large building that smelled of herbs and antiseptic. The Healer's Hall. Inside, a woman looked up from grinding something in a mortar. She was perhaps 50, with silver streaking through her dark hair and shrewd eyes that missed nothing. Rejection, she said immediately, her nose twitching. Fresh. Bring her here. Chaol helped Arya onto an examination table, more gently than seemed possible for hands that had reportedly killed dozens, then stepped back. I'll be outside, he said. No. The healer's voice was firm. You'll stay. She's terrified. And you're the only familiar thing in this place right now. Sit. To Arya's shock, the fearsome Alpha Saturday, the healer's hands were gentle as she examined Arya, checking her pulse points, her eyes pressing carefully against the place over her heart where the bond had shattered. I'm Vera, she said as she worked. I've been Blood Moon's healer for 30 years, so I've seen rejection before. You're lucky if you can call it that. You're young enough that this won't kill you, but it will hurt for a while. How long? Arya's voice came out as a whisper. The acute pain? 3 days, maybe 4. The ache? Months. The scar? Vera's eyes were kind but honest. That's forever, child. A rejection leaves a mark on the soul. Arya's eyes burned, but she had no tears left. Vera mixed something that smelled like mint and ash. Drink this. It won't fix the bond damage, but it will help you sleep without dreaming. The mixture was bitter, but Arya drank it obediently. Already, exhaustion was pulling at her, the adrenaline that had kept her moving finally depleting. She needs rest, Vera said, looking at Chaol. And she'll need clothes, food, a place to stay. I assume you're not throwing her back across the border? No. Chaol's voice was firm. She stays as long as she wants. As a guest, not a prisoner. Your father would have killed her for trespassing. My father, Chaol said quietly, is dead, and I am not him. Something passed between them, some old understanding, some shared history. There's a room in the guest quarters, Vera said. 3rd floor, east wing. It's clean and private. I'll have someone bring clothes and food. Chaol stood. Can you walk? Arya slid off the table, testing her legs. The medicine was already making everything feel distant and cottony, but she could manage. Yes. The guest quarters were nicer than her room back in Silvermoon had ever been. The space was small but well appointed, with a real bed, not a cot covered in thick furs. A window looked out over the forest. A fireplace already crackled with warmth. Bathrooms through there, Chaol said, gesturing to a door. Clothes will arrive soon. Food too. Is there anything else you need? Arya turned to look at him, really look at him. In the firelight, his scar was more visible, along with dozens of smaller marks across his arms and shoulders. Battle scars, survival scars. Why are you doing this? She asked. I'm nobody. Less than nobody now. And I'm from a pack that. She trailed off. But they both knew. Silvermoon and Bloodmoon had been enemies for generations. Kale was quiet for a long moment, his strange silver eyes reflecting the firelight. 5 years ago, he said finally, I challenged my father for the alpha position. Do you know why? Arya shook her head. Because he was going to kill a 14-year-old girl whose only crime was being born weak. He believed weakness polluted the pack, that anyone who couldn't fight should be culled. His jaw tightened. I killed him instead. And every wolf he would have murdered is still alive. He moved toward the door, then paused. You're not nobody, Arya. You're a wolf who was strong enough to stand up in front of 5 packs and claim what was yours. That took courage. The fact that he was too much of a coward to honor the bond doesn't change that. The door closed softly behind him. Arya stood there, swaying slightly as the medicine pulled at her consciousness. Then she stumbled to the bed and collapsed into it. Her last thought before sleep took her was that the monster alpha's kindness hurt almost as much as Dorian's cruelty, because at least she'd expected the cruelty. She woke to weak sunlight filtering through the window and the smell of food. A tray sat on the bedside table, fresh bread, cheese, fruit, and some kind of meat pie that smelled incredible. Next to it, a neat stack of clothes, soft leather pants, a tunic, undergarments, and boots that looked about her size. Arya ate mechanically, tasting nothing, then bathed in the small bathroom. The hot water felt good on muscles still sore from shifting and running. She caught sight of herself in the mirror and flinched. She looked haunted. Her dark eyes were ringed with shadows, her skin too pale, her lips still slightly blue from shock. The rejection had marked her, just as Vera said it would. A knock at the door made her jump. It's Vera, came the healer's voice. I brought more medicine. Arya opened the door to find Vera holding another steaming cup, along with a bundle of clothes. How are you feeling? Vera asked, stepping inside without waiting for invitation. Like I was ripped in half. The words came out flat. That's accurate. Vera handed her the cup. Drink. And then we need to talk about what happens next. What do you mean? Vera settled into the room's single chair with the ease of someone who'd had many difficult conversations. You can't go back to Silvermoon, she said bluntly. You know that, right? Even if Kale allowed it, which he might, he's soft that way. You'd be walking back into a pack that watched your humiliation. They'll never let you forget it. You'll be the crazy she-wolf who thought she could have the alpha's son. Each word was a knife, but they were also true. So what are my options? Arya asked bitterly. Become a rogue? Hope some pack takes pity on me? Or stay here? Arya blinked. What? Bloodmoon isn't what the other packs say it is, Vera said. Yes, we're warriors. Yes, we're fierce. But we're also a pack that takes in strays. Wolves who don't fit anywhere else. Kale has built something different here. A place where strength isn't just about who can fight the hardest. I don't understand. Why would he let me stay? I'm from an enemy pack. Because Kale believes wolves are more than their bloodlines. Vera's eyes were sharp. And because he sees something in you. I don't know what yet, but I've known that boy since he was a pup. He doesn't bring wolves into his territory without reason. Before Arya could respond, another knock sounded. Come in, Vera called. A young woman entered, perhaps 20, with auburn hair and warm brown eyes. She moved with the easy confidence of someone comfortable in her own skin. You must be Arya, she said, smiling. I'm Riley. Kale sent me to show you around, if you're feeling up to it. Arya looked between them, feeling overwhelmed. Go, Vera said. Sitting in this room brooding won't help, and Riley here is good people. She'll take care of you. Riley led her out into the compound, chattering easily about the layout. There's the training yard. That's the communal hall. Those are the family residences. So, Riley said as they walked, I heard you're from Silvermoon. That must be weird, being here. That's one word for it. Arya wrapped her arms around herself. I'm from Ironwood originally, Riley said. Came here 3 years ago after my pack exiled me for mating with a wolf they didn't approve of. Kale took me in, no questions asked. Now I'm part of his personal guard. Arya stopped walking. They exiled you for who you loved? Yep, my mate was an Omega lowest rank. My parents wanted me to mate someone worthy of my bloodline. Riley's voice dripped with disdain. When I refused, they gave me a choice, reject my mate or leave the pack. So you left. Damn right I did. My mate is worth 1,000 of my narrow-minded parents. And here in Bloodmoon, nobody cares about rank or bloodline. They care about loyalty and strength of character. They'd reached a training yard, where wolves were sparring. Arya watched them move fast and brutal, but controlled. Every strike, purposeful. That's Finn, Riley said, pointing to a massive wolf with rust-colored fur. He was rogue for 5 years before Kale found him half dead from a bear attack. And that's Sage, she was disowned by Shadowfen pack for being too aggressive. And Tomas over there? He's deaf, which got him labeled defective by his birth pack. Here, he's one of our best trackers because his other senses are so sharp. Arya looked around with new eyes. These weren't the savage killers she'd been taught to fear. They were refugees, outcasts, wolves who hadn't fit the molds their birth packs tried to force them into. Just like her. Does everyone here have a tragic backstory? She asked, trying for humor. Riley's smile was wry. Pretty much. But here's the thing, we're not defined by what we lost. We're defined by what we've built. Together. A commotion near the main hall drew their attention. Wolves were gathering, their voices rising in excitement. What's happening? Arya asked. Riley's expression darkened. Looks like we have visitors. They moved closer, and Arya's blood turned to ice. Because standing in the center of the courtyard, surrounded by Blood Moon wolves, were 3 Silver Moon warriors. And leading them, looking uncomfortable and determined, was her sister Celeste. We're here under peace flag, Celeste was saying to a stern-looking Blood Moon wolf. We need to speak with Alpha Kale. It's about my sister. Arya's instinct was to run, to hide, to be anywhere but here. But her feet seemed rooted to the ground. Arya! Celeste's eyes found her in the crowd. Relief flooded her perfect face. Thank the goddess. I've been so worried. What are you doing here? Arya's voice came out harder than she'd intended. Celeste looked hurt. I came to bring you home. Father and mother are worried sick. And Dorian. Arya, he feels terrible about what happened. He wants to talk to you, to explain. Explain what? The words came out sharp as broken glass. How he rejected me in front of 5 packs. How he called me delusional. How he chose politics over his mate. It's complicated. No, Arya said, and she was surprised by the steadiness in her own voice. It's really not. He made his choice. Now I'm making mine. You can't stay here. Celeste hissed, lowering her voice. This is Blood Moon. These are killers, Arya. Monsters. Funny, Riley said from beside Arya, her voice pleasant but edged with steel. From where I'm standing, the monsters were the ones who let a rejected wolf flee alone into the forest, not the ones who took her in and healed her. Celeste's eyes flashed. Who are you two? Riley. Kale's voice cut through the tension like a blade. He strode into the courtyard, and the crowd parted automatically. His eyes found Arya first, checking that she was okay, then moved to Celeste. You want to take her back to the pack that humiliated her? Our alpha demands her return, one of the Silver Moon warriors said stiffly. She left without permission. She fled after being publicly rejected and destroyed, Kale said, his voice dropping to something dangerous. And now you want to drag her back? For what? More humiliation? That's not, Celeste started. Arya. Kale turned to her, his silver eyes serious. This is your choice. If you want to go back, I won't stop you. But if you want to stay, you have a place here. No strings, no obligations. You're free to choose. The courtyard went silent. Arya looked at her sister, beautiful, perfect Celeste, who'd never been rejected, never been humiliated, never had to fight for scraps of affection, who looked at her now with pity and confusion. like she couldn't understand why anyone would choose to stay in enemy territory. Then she looked at Kale. At Riley. At the gathered blood moon wolves who watched with understanding in their eyes because they'd all been where she was. They'd all had to choose between going back to places that didn't want them, or building something new. I'm staying, Arya said. Celeste's face crumpled. Arya, please. Go home, Celeste. Tell father and mother that I'm fine. Tell Dorian. She paused, feeling the place where the bond had been still raw, still aching, but no longer bleeding. Tell Dorian that I hope he and Elena are very happy together. You're making a mistake, Celeste whispered. Maybe, Arya said. But it's my mistake to make. Kale nodded to his wolves. Escort our guests back to the border, under peace flag. As the Silver Moon wolves were led away, Celeste looked back once, her eyes bright with tears. Arya felt a pang in her chest, but it wasn't regret. It was goodbye. When they were gone, Riley put a hand on Arya's shoulder. That took guts. Or stupidity, Arya said, her voice shaking now that the adrenaline was fading. I just burned the last bridge to my old life. No, Kale said quietly. You just chose to stop standing on a bridge that was already on fire. He started to walk away, then paused. Training starts tomorrow at dawn. If you're staying, you'll need to learn to defend yourself properly. Can't have pack members who can't hold their own. I'm not pack, Arya said automatically. Kale's smile was slight but real. Not yet, but you will be. He walked away, leaving Arya standing in the courtyard, surrounded by wolves who'd chosen exile over conformity, freedom over acceptance. And for the first time since the rejection, she felt something other than pain. She felt possibility. Chapter 3. The training grounds. Dawn came too early. Arya had barely slept, her body still adjusting to the unfamiliar bed, the unfamiliar sounds, the unfamiliar ache where her bond had been. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Dorian's face cold and distant as he rejected her, heard the laughter of the crowd. A sharp knock on her door jolted her fully awake. Training in 15 minutes, Riley's voice called through the wood. Don't be late. Kale hates tardiness. Arya dressed quickly in the training clothes that had been left for her flexible leather pants and a fitted tunic that allowed for movement. Her hands shook slightly as she braided her hair back. She was about to train with Blood Moon warriors, wolves who were legendary for their combat skills, wolves who would immediately see how inadequate she was. The training yard was already full when she arrived, at least 30 wolves warming up. They moved with a fluid grace that spoke of years of practice, muscles shifting beneath skin with predatory efficiency. Arya felt every eye turn to her as she approached. The new wolf, the Silver Moon reject. You came. Kale appeared beside her, dressed in simple training gear that somehow made him look more dangerous, not less. I wasn't sure you would. You said I needed to learn to defend myself, Arya said, lifting her chin. I'm here to learn. Something like approval flickered in his silver eyes. Good. Riley, she's with you for basics. Start with stance and movement. The morning was brutal. Riley was a patient teacher, but that didn't make the work any easier. Every stance Arya had learned in Silver Moon was apparently wrong, too high, too exposed, too focused on looking pretty rather than being effective. Silver Moon trains for ceremonies and shows of dominance, Riley explained as she corrected Arya's footing for the 5th time. Blood Moon trains for survival. Big difference. By mid-morning, Arya's muscles were screaming and sweat soaked through her tunic. Around her, other wolves sparred with controlled ferocity, the sound of fists hitting flesh and bodies hitting dirt creating a constant rhythm. Break! Kale's voice rang out across the yard. Arya nearly collapsed with relief. She bent over, hands on her knees, trying to catch her breath. Water. A canteen appeared in her line of vision. She looked up to find a massive wolf, the one Riley had pointed out yesterday as Finn holding it out. Up close, he was even more intimidating, easily 6.5 feet tall with shoulders like a mountain. Thanks. Arya managed, taking the canteen and drinking gratefully. You're doing well, Finn said, his voice surprisingly gentle for such a large man. For your first day. I'm terrible, Arya said honestly. Everyone here could destroy me in seconds. Now, yeah, but that's why you train. He settled onto the ground beside her with easy grace. I couldn't fight worth a damn when I first came here either. 5 years as a rogue, running and hiding instead of standing my ground. Kale taught me that being big wasn't enough. You have to be smart too. How long did it take, Arya asked, to feel like you belonged? Finn considered this. Couple months, maybe. The thing about Blood Moon is nobody cares who you were before. They care about who you choose to be now. A whistle cut through the air, Kale calling everyone back. That's us, Finn said, standing and offering her a hand up. Second half is strategy training. You'll like this better, more thinking, less getting your ass kicked. He was right. Kale gathered everyone in a semicircle and began outlining a complex scenario, a 3-way ambush with limited resources and multiple objectives. He pointed to wolves at random, asking how they'd respond, what they'd prioritize. Arya found herself leaning forward, fascinated despite her exhaustion. This wasn't just about being strong or fast. It was about reading situations, anticipating moves, using terrain and psychology as weapons. You, Kale's silver eyes landed on her. You're scouting and you spot a force twice your size heading toward your pack's territory. What do? Every eye turned to her. Arya's mouth went dry. The old her would have stammered, would have given the expected answer, report back immediately, let the Alpha decide. But something had broken in her when Dorian rejected her. Or maybe something had been freed. I'd analyze their formation, she said slowly, thinking it through. If they're in tight formation, they're expecting a fight. If they're spread out, they might be searching for something. That tells me if I have time to report back, or if I need to act immediately. Kale's expression didn't change. And if you don't have time to report back? Then I'd have to decide what's more valuable, alerting them to my presence by attacking and hoping to delay them, or letting them pass, and tracking their movements to find out their real objective. She paused. But I'd also look for why they're coming. Are they following a trail? Responding to something? Because if I can disrupt their intel, I might stop them without fighting at all. Silence. Then Kale nodded. Good. You think before you act. That's worth more than strength in most situations. Arya felt something warm bloom in her chest, not the bond's artificial heat, but genuine pride. When was the last time someone had praised her intelligence, instead of just tolerating her presence? The rest of the session flew by, with Kale presenting increasingly complex scenarios and the pack working through solutions together. It wasn't hierarchical like Silvermoon, where the Alpha decided and everyone obeyed. Here, warriors challenged each other's ideas, built on them, created something stronger through collaboration. This was what a real pack felt like, Arya realized. Not just a collection of wolves following one leader, but a unified force where everyone's strengths mattered. When training finally ended, Arya could barely walk. Riley had to help her back to her room, laughing at her groans. First week is always hell, Riley said cheerfully. But your body adapts fast. Shifter healing, you know. Arya collapsed onto her bed, fully clothed. I might die before I adapt. You won't. Trust me. I've seen wolves in way worse shape than you. There was this one guy who showed up half-starved, and Riley's chatter faded as Arya's eyes drifted closed. She woke hours later to darkness and the smell of food. Another tray sat beside her bed, stew this time, rich with meat and vegetables, along with fresh bread and some kind of fruit tart. Her stomach growled traitorously. As she ate, Arya found herself thinking about the day, about how different Blood Moon was from everything she'd been taught, about how Kale led not through fear but through respect, about how every wolf here seemed to genuinely care about the other's well-being. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Come in, she called, expecting Riley, or maybe Vera. Kale stepped through the door, and Arya suddenly became very aware that she was sitting on her bed in training clothes, hair a mess, probably smelling like sweat and dirt. I wanted to check on you, he said, staying near the door. Always careful about space, she noticed. Never crowding. First day of Blood Moon training can be intense. That's one word for it, Arya said, managing a smile. I think I discovered muscles I didn't know I had. You did well. He leaned against the doorframe, and in the low light, his scar was just a shadow across his face. Better than most newcomers. You don't give up easily. I've had practice, Arya said before she could stop herself. Something shifted in his expression, understanding maybe. Kinship. The pain, he said quietly. From the rejection. Is it getting better? Arya touched the place over her heart without thinking. It's different. Not as sharp. More like a bruise now than an open wound. Kale nodded. It will fade. Not completely, but enough that you can breathe around it. And eventually, you'll realize that losing someone who didn't value you wasn't a loss at all. It was freedom. You sound like you're speaking from experience. His jaw tightened. My father believed love was weakness. That caring about anyone beyond their usefulness to the pack was a flaw to be exploited. He tried to beat that belief into me for 18 years. But you didn't believe it? No. I saw what his philosophy created. A pack of wolves who feared each other, who competed instead of cooperating, who'd gladly stab each other in the back for advancement. His silver eyes met hers. When I challenged him, half the pack expected me to rule the same way. They were shocked when I didn't execute his most loyal followers, when I welcomed rogues instead of killing them, when I made decisions based on what was right instead of what was profitable. Some leaders would call that weakness. Arya said softly. Some leaders are fools. Kale pushed off from the doorframe. Strength isn't about how much you can hurt others. It's about how much you can protect them. That's what makes a real alpha. He moved toward the door, then paused. There's a pack gathering tomorrow night. Nothing formal, just food and stories around the fire. You should come. Let people get to know you as more than just the Silvermoon refugee. I don't know if I'm ready for that, Arya admitted. You don't have to be ready. You just have to show up. His slight smile returned. Besides, Riley will drag you there anyway. Better to go willingly. After he left, Arya sat in the darkness, thinking about strength and weakness, about what it meant to be valued versus what it meant to be used. In Silvermoon, she'd been nothing too plain, too low-ranked, too ordinary to matter. Even when she'd been Dorian's mate, it had been a secret shame, something to hide rather than celebrate. Here, after just 2 days, she'd been given a room, clothes, food, training, and respect. Not because of who her parents were or what she looked like or what use she could be, just because she was a wolf who needed help. The ache in her chest pulsed the rejection scar, reminding her of what she'd lost. But for the first time, Arya wondered if maybe what she'd lost wasn't worth keeping anyway. The next day's training was somehow worse than the first. Kale had them running drills in wolf form, sprints, obstacle courses, team coordination exercises. Arya's wolf was still weakened from the rejection, smaller and slower than it should be, and she felt every inadequacy as she struggled to keep up. Don't force it, Riley called as they raced through the forest. Your wolf is healing. Push too hard, and you'll set back your recovery. But Arya couldn't help it. Couldn't help pushing, trying to prove she wasn't the useless reject everyone back in Silvermoon had believed her to be. She was so focused on keeping pace with the wolf ahead of her that she didn't see the route. Her paw caught, sending her tumbling head over tail. She yelped as she hit the ground hard, pain shooting through her shoulder. The other wolves circled back immediately. Riley shifted, kneeling beside her. Can you shift back? Arya tried, but the pain made her concentration splinter. Her wolf whimpered, frightened and hurt. Easy, a deep voice said. Kale, also shifted to human form, approached slowly. Arya, look at me. Focus on my voice. Your shoulder's dislocated, which is making it hard for your wolf to let go. But you can do this. Breathe. Find your center. Come back. His voice was steady, calm, an anchor in the panic. Arya fixed on his silver eyes and breathed. The shift hurt, but she managed it. Good, Kale said. Now, this is going to hurt worse for a second, but then it will feel better. Ready? Before she could respond, he'd grasped her arm with expert precision and popped her shoulder back into place. Arya screamed, then gasped as the acute pain vanished, replaced by a dull ache. Shifter healing will take care of the rest, Kale said, helping her sit up. But you're done for today. Finn, help her back to the compound. I can keep going, Arya protested automatically. No, you can't. Kale's voice was firm but not unkind. You're injured and your wolf is exhausted. Pushing past your limits isn't brave, it's stupid. And I don't train stupid wolves. The words stung, but they were fair. Finn helped her back to the compound, chattering amiably about his own training injuries. Apparently he'd once broken 3 ribs because he'd been too proud to admit he was tired. Kale made me sit out for a week, Finn said. I was furious. Thought he was calling me weak. But you know what? When I came back, I was stronger than before because I'd actually healed properly instead of half-assing it. He left her at the healer's hall, where Vera tutted and fussed over her shoulder. Dislocated, Vera confirmed. Already healing, but you'll be sore for a day or 2, and your wolf needs rest. I can feel her exhaustion from here. I just want to be useful, Arya said quietly. I don't want to be the weak one everyone has to take care of. Vera's eyes softened. Child, accepting help when you need it isn't weakness. It's wisdom. The wolves in this pack look out for each other. That's not a burden, it's what makes us strong. That evening, true to Kale's prediction, Riley appeared at her door. Pack gathering time, she announced cheerfully. And before you say you're too tired or too hurt or too whatever, I don't care. You're coming. I'll carry you if I have to. The gathering was held in a large clearing behind the main compound. A massive bonfire crackled at the center, surrounded by logs and blankets where wolves lounged in various forms, some human, some wolf, some in between. The smell of roasting meat filled the air, along with laughter and conversation. Riley guided Arya to a spot near the fire, and immediately several wolves made room, welcoming her with nods and smiles. How's the shoulder? Asked Sage, the aggressive fighter from Shadowfen. Up close, she had kind eyes that contradicted her fierce reputation. Healing, Arya said. Slowly. Your first real injury here, Tomas said, or rather, signed. Riley translated smoothly. Now you're really one of us. Everyone hurts themselves doing something dumb in the first week. I broke my arm trying to show off, Riley admitted. Thought I could jump between 2 trees that were definitely too far apart. I gave myself a concussion running full speed into a door, Finn said, grinning. In human form. The stories went around, each wolf sharing their most embarrassing training moment, and Arya found herself laughing. Really laughing, for the first time since the rejection. Kale appeared at some point, settling onto a log across the fire. He didn't speak much, but his presence was comfortable rather than intimidating. He'd catch wolves' eyes, nod at their stories, occasionally add a dry comment that made everyone laugh. This was what he'd meant, Arya realized. This casual gathering, this easy camaraderie, this was pack. Not formal hierarchy and political maneuvering, just wolves who cared about each other, who found joy in each other's company. Story time, someone called out. The pack settled, and an older wolf, gray-haired and weathered, stood up. Let me tell you about the time Kale fought off 6 rogues while protecting a pregnant wolf who'd stumbled into our territory. The story was exciting, full of danger and impossible odds, but what struck Arya was how it painted Kale not as a brutal killer, but as a protector, someone who'd risked his life for a stranger. More stories followed. Tales of blood moon wolves helping other packs during natural disasters, of taking in orphaned pups, of standing up to corrupt alphas in other territories. These weren't the monsters Arya had been taught to fear. They were heroes that nobody talked about because it didn't fit the narrative. As the fire burned down and wolves began to drift away to their beds, Riley nudged Arya. See? Not so bad, right? No, Arya admitted. Not bad at all. She stood to leave, intending to head back to her room, but Kale appeared beside her. Walk with me, he said. Not a command, but an invitation. They walked in comfortable silence through the compound, the sounds of the gathering fading behind them. You're starting to heal, Kale observed. I can see it in the way you carry yourself, less like you're bracing for a blow. This place is different, Arya said carefully. From what I expected. What did you expect? Honestly? Brutality, fear, wolves who'd kill me for looking at them wrong. Kale's laugh was soft and bitter. That's what they all think. The other packs feed each other stories about us being monsters because it's easier than admitting they're the ones creating refugees. They'd reached the edge of the compound, where the forest pressed close. The moon was rising, nearly full. and its light painted everything silver. "Can I ask you something?" Arya said. "Always. Why did you really bring me here? You could have just sent me on my way with supplies. Instead, you've fed me, clothed me, trained me, welcomed me into your pack. Why?" Kale was quiet for a long moment, his eyes on the moon. "Because," he said finally, "I know what it's like to be thrown away by people who should have protected you. And I swore when I became Alpha that no wolf who came to me for help would ever be turned away." He turned to face her, and in the moonlight, his silver eyes almost glowed. "But if I'm being completely honest, there's something else." Arya's heart skipped. "What?" "From the moment I caught your scent in my territory, even broken and bleeding from rejection, my wolf," he trailed off, seeming to struggle with words. "There's something about you, Arya. Something my wolf recognizes. I don't know what it means yet, but I know you were meant to be here." Before Arya could process this, before she could even begin to understand what he was saying, a howl split the night. Not a peaceful howl, a warning. Kale's entire demeanor changed in an instant, going from contemplative to battle-ready. "That's the north border. Stay here." "What's happening?" But he was already shifting, his massive black wolf form bounding toward the sound of the alarm. Arya stood frozen for only a moment, before her own wolf surged up, demanding action. She shifted, still slow, still painful, but faster than yesterday, and ran after him. She might be new to Blood Moon, but if her pack was in danger, she'd fight. Chapter 4. Blood and Boundaries. Arya's wolf tore through the forest, following Kale's scent and the sounds of snarling ahead. Her shoulder ached with each stride, but adrenaline pushed her forward. The north border came into view, and with it, chaos. At least a dozen wolves clashed in the moonlight, fur and fangs flashing. But these weren't rogues. Even in wolf form, Arya recognized the scent. Silvermoon. Her old pack had invaded Blood Moon territory. Kale's massive black form dominated the center of the fight, facing off against 3 Silvermoon warriors at once. He moved with lethal precision, using his size and strength to keep them at bay without delivering killing blows. He was holding back, Arya realized. Even now, even with his territory invaded, he was trying not to kill. Riley fought nearby, her smaller form quick and clever, darting in to snap at legs and throats before dancing away. Finn used his bulk to bodily throw wolves back across the border, while Sage fought with controlled fury, every move calculated. Then Arya saw him. Dorian. Her former mate stood in human form just across the borderline, watching the fight with cold calculation. Next to him stood Alpha Thorn and a half-dozen more warriors, waiting. This wasn't a raid. This was a test. They were probing Blood Moon's defenses. Arya's wolf growled, fury rising in her chest. They'd rejected her, humiliated her, driven her away, and now they dared to attack her new pack. Before she could think better of it, she launched herself into the fray. A Silvermoon wolf, one she recognized from training sessions, a warrior named Drake, had gotten past Finn and was heading for Riley's exposed flank. Arya slammed into him mid-leap, teeth finding purchase in his shoulder. Drake yelped and twisted, trying to throw her off. He was bigger, stronger, better trained, but Arya had surprise on her side and the desperate strength of someone protecting pack. They rolled, snapping and snarling, until Drake managed to pin her. His jaws closed around her throat, not crushing, but a clear message of dominance. Then he went flying. Kale stood over her, his wolf radiating fury. His silver eyes locked on Drake, and even from several feet away, Arya felt the weight of his alpha command. Leave. Now. Drake scrambled back across the border, tail tucked, but the brief distraction had cost Kale. One of the wolves he'd been fighting, a large gray warrior, lunged for his exposed side. Kale. Riley's warning came too late. The gray wolf's teeth sank into Kale's shoulder, right where old scar tissue was already visible. Blood sprayed, black in the moonlight. Kale roared, a sound of pain and rage that shook the trees. He twisted with terrifying speed, catching the gray wolf by the throat and slamming him into the ground. For a moment, Arya thought he'd kill him, but Kale released his grip and stepped back, blood dripping from his shoulder. Enough. His voice boomed across the border, the alpha command so powerful that even the Silvermoon wolves froze. "This is an act of war, Thorn. You've crossed the line." Alpha Thorn shifted to human form, unbothered by his nakedness or the blood on his wolves. "We're reclaiming stolen property," he said coldly. "You harbor a Silvermoon wolf without permission. She came here as a refugee after being rejected and abandoned by your pack," Kale growled, also shifting to human form despite his injury. Blood ran down his arm, but he didn't acknowledge it. "She chose to stay. That makes her mine to protect. She's Silvermoon-born. That makes her ours. Not anymore." Kale's voice was steel. "She renounced her birth pack when your son destroyed her bond. Or do you not remember watching that happen and doing nothing to stop it?" Thorn's eyes flashed. "You overstep, Blood Moon. We could crush you if we wanted." "You could try." Kale smiled. "And it was a terrible thing. All teeth and promise of violence. But you won't, because you know that even if you won, the cost would leave you vulnerable to Ironwood and Shadowfen. You're not here for war, Thorn. You're here to test me. To see if I'm weak." The two alphas stared at each other across the border, and Arya could feel the weight of dominance and will clashing in the air between them. Finally, Thorn laughed short and bitter. "Keep her then. One worthless she-wolf isn't worth the trouble." The words shouldn't have hurt. Arya had already been rejected, already been called worthless. But hearing it from her birth pack's alpha, said so casually, like she was nothing, it reopened wounds she'd thought were scabbing over. "She's worth more than your entire pack combined," Kale said quietly. And something in his voice made Arya's breath catch. "Because she has courage." She stood up for herself when everyone told her to be silent. She chose exile over accepting a life of disrespect. That's real strength, Thorn. The kind you've never understood. For a moment, Arya saw something flicker across Dorian's face, regret, maybe, or shame. But then his father's hand came down on his shoulder, and the expression vanished. "We're done here," Thorn said. "But this isn't over, Blood Moon. You've made an enemy tonight." "I made an enemy the day I refused to become my father," Kale replied. "One more doesn't scare me." The Silvermoon wolves withdrew, melting into the forest. But Arya saw Dorian look back once, his eyes finding hers across the distance. She held his gaze steadily, letting him see that she was still standing, still alive, still stronger than he'd believed possible. Then he was gone, swallowed by shadows. The moment the Silvermoon wolves were out of sight, Kale's knees buckled. Alpha. Riley was there instantly, supporting his weight. "Finn, get Vera. Now." Arya shifted back to human form, not caring about her nakedness as she rushed to Kale's side. The wound in his shoulder was deep, still bleeding freely. "I'm fine," Kale gritted out, but his face was pale. "You're not fine, you stubborn idiot," Riley snapped. "That bite is right on your old injury. Could have damaged the muscle permanently." Finn returned within minutes, half carrying Vera, who took one look at Kale and started barking orders. "Get him to the healing hall. Everyone else who's injured, follow. Riley, I need you to—" "I can walk," Kale insisted, trying to stand and immediately swaying. "You can shut up and let people help you," Vera said sharply. "Finn, carry him." "I will break your arm," Kale warned as Finn approached. "You can try, Alpha. But you're about to pass out from blood loss, so I like my chances." Finn scooped Kale up like he weighed nothing, ignoring the Alpha's growled protests. The procession back to the compound was tense. Several Blood Moon wolves had injuries, mostly minor, but a few serious. The Silvermoon warriors had fought to hurt, not just to test. Vera's healing hall became organized chaos as she moved between patients, her hands sure and steady despite the blood and moans of pain. Arya found herself helping without thinking, fetching supplies, holding bandages, offering water to injured wolves. It felt natural, right? Like this was where she was meant to be. "You!" Vera's voice cut through the noise. "Arya. Come here." She approached to find Vera working on Kale's shoulder. He sat shirtless on an examination table, his jaw clenched against pain as Vera probed the wound. "It's deep," Vera muttered. "Going to need stitches. Lots of them." And it's going to hurt like hell because I can't numb it properly, the injury's too close to major nerves. Just do it, Kale said. I need someone to help hold him steady. Vera's eyes found Arya's. You're small, but you've got steady hands. I saw you helping the others. Think you can do this without passing out? Arya swallowed hard. Yes. Good. Stand behind him. Brace his shoulders. When I start stitching, he's going to want to move. Don't let him. Arya positioned herself behind Kale, placing her hands on his uninjured shoulder and his opposite arm. This close, she could feel the heat radiating from his skin, smell the pine and smoke scent of him mixing with copper blood. Ready? Vera asked. Kale nodded once. The first stitch made him tense, every muscle in his back going rigid. Arya tightened her grip, holding him steady. The second made him growl low in his throat. By the fifth, his breathing had gone ragged, and sweat beaded on his forehead. You're doing good, Arya murmured without thinking, the way she might comfort an injured animal. Just breathe. Focus on breathing. Talk to him, Vera said, not looking up from her work. Give him something to focus on besides the pain. Arya's mind went blank. What was she supposed to say? Then she remembered what he'd said earlier, before the attack. You said your wolf recognized something in me, she said quietly, just loud enough for him to hear. What did you mean? Kale's breath hitched, but he answered. From the moment I caught your scent, even broken and bleeding, my wolf wanted to protect you. Not out of duty. Out of need. Need? Like you were something precious. Something worth fighting for. His voice was strained but steady. I don't understand it yet, but I've learned to trust my wolf's instincts. Vera made a satisfied sound. Halfway done. Keep talking. Why did you really kill your father? Arya asked. It was bold, maybe too bold, but she needed to keep him talking. Because he was going to kill a 14-year-old girl named Maya, Kale said. She was small for her age, weak from illness. He said she was a drain on pack resources. Said the strong don't carry the weak. His jaw clenched, and Arya felt the tremor run through him. I'd watched him kill 2 other weak wolves in the 5 years since I'd become of age. I couldn't. I wouldn't watch another. What happened to Maya? She's in the kitchens now. Healthy. Happy. Engaged to one of our best trackers. She makes the best honey cakes you've ever tasted. A slight smile touched his lips despite the pain. And she's the one who convinced me to open our borders to refugees. Said if I'd saved her, I should save others too. She sounds wise. She is, smarter than me in a lot of ways. He sucked in a sharp breath as Vera hit a particularly painful spot. What about you? What made you stand up to Dorian in front of all those packs? Arya considered the question, her hands steady on his skin. I think, some part of me knew that if I didn't fight for myself in that moment, I never would. That I'd spend the rest of my life being invisible, being less than. And I was so tired of being invisible. You're not invisible, Kale said, his voice rough. Not to me, not to anyone here. Done, Vera announced, tying off the last stitch. That's going to scar. Add it to the collection, Kale said dryly. Vera began bandaging the wound with efficient movements. No training for a week, and I mean it, Kale. This injury needs time to heal properly, or you'll have permanent damage. There's too much to do. Then delegate. Vera's voice was firm. You have capable wolves. Use them. That's what a smart alpha does. Kale sighed but nodded. As Vera moved away to check on other patients, he turned to look at Arya. Thank you, he said, for helping, both with this and during the fight. Though you shouldn't have engaged, you're still recovering yourself. They were attacking my pack, Arya said simply. What else would I do? Something shifted in his expression, surprise, maybe, or pleasure. Your pack. You called us your pack. Arya realized what she'd said and felt heat rise to her cheeks. I mean, I'm staying here, so. Say it again, Kale said softly. Like you mean it. She met his silver eyes, seeing the intensity there, the hope, and realized she did mean it. They were attacking my pack, she repeated, clear and steady. I wasn't going to just hide while my pack fought. Kale's smile was like sunrise, slow and warm and transformative. Welcome home, Arya. The words hit her like a physical blow. Home. When had anywhere ever felt like home? But looking around the healing hall at Riley helping bandage Finn's leg, at Sage arguing good-naturedly with Tomas about who'd taken down more Silvermoon wolves, at Vera fussing over everyone with stern affection, Arya realized it was true. This was home, not the place she'd been born, not the pack that shared her blood, but the wolves who'd chosen her, who'd welcomed her, who'd fought to keep her safe. Thank you, she whispered. Kale reached out with his good arm and took her hand, his grip warm and solid. No, thank you. For choosing us, for being brave enough to start over. A throat cleared behind them. Riley stood there, a knowing smirk on her face. Hate to interrupt this moment, but Vera says everyone needs rest. That means you too, Alpha. Bed, now, before you collapse and make her even more angry. Kale stood, swaying only slightly. Arya moved instinctively to support him, and he didn't pull away. Together, with Riley on his other side, they helped him to his quarters, a surprisingly modest room for an alpha, Arya noticed, functional but not ostentatious. As they lowered him onto his bed, Kale caught Arya's wrist. Stay, he said, just until I fall asleep. He paused, seeming to struggle with the admission. I don't like being alone after fights. Too many memories. Riley nodded at Arya encouragingly and slipped out, closing the door behind her. Arya settled into a chair beside the bed, still holding Kale's hand because he hadn't let go. Tell me about them, she said softly. The memories. The wolves my father killed, Kale said, his eyes fixed on the ceiling. I was 17 when he killed the first one, a young male who'd questioned his judgment in a pack meeting. Too gentle, my father said. Weak. He executed him publicly to make a point. His grip tightened on her hand. I stood there and watched and did nothing. I told myself I wasn't strong enough yet, that I needed more time, more training, more allies. You were 17, Arya said, still practically a child yourself. I was old enough to know it was wrong, but I was a coward. His voice was heavy with old guilt. The second was a woman who'd mated a wolf from another pack. My father saw it as a betrayal. I tried to intervene that time, begged him to show mercy. He beat me unconscious and killed her anyway. His silver eyes finally met hers. When Maya's turn came, I knew I couldn't watch another death and live with myself. So I challenged him. And I won. That's not cowardice, Arya said firmly. That's survival. You did what you had to do to stay alive long enough to make a difference. And look at what you've built, a pack where nobody is thrown away for being different or weak or inconvenient. That's worth the wait. Kale studied her face like he was memorizing it. You're good at this. Seeing the best in people. Only people who deserve it. His eyes were already drifting closed. Exhaustion and blood loss finally claiming him. Tomorrow, we need to prepare. Thorn won't let this go. Tomorrow, Arya agreed. Tonight, you rest. Within minutes, his breathing evened out into sleep. But he didn't release her hand, so Arya stayed, watching over him in the darkness. She thought about Dorian, about how he'd looked at her across the border with something like regret, about how he'd chosen politics and power over the mate bond. Then she thought about Kale, about how he'd taken her in without question, how he'd defended her to his enemy, how he'd called her worth more than an entire pack. The mate bond with Dorian had been supposed to be fate, destiny, the moon goddess's perfect match, but it had been a lie. A biological trick that meant nothing without choice, without respect, without genuine care. Whatever this was with Kale, this strange recognition, this growing connection, it was real because they were choosing it, because it was built on mutual respect and shared values and actual caring. That was worth more than any bond. Arya sat in the darkness, holding the hand of a sleeping alpha, and realized that maybe being rejected had been the best thing that could have happened to her, because it had led her here. Home. Chapter 5. The Challenge. Arya woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows, and the realization that she'd fallen asleep in the chair beside Kale's bed. Her neck ached from the awkward angle, but Kale's hand was still wrapped around hers, even in sleep. His face was peaceful, younger, somehow without the weight of alpha responsibility pressing down on him. She carefully extracted her hand and stood, stretching out the kinks. The movement must have woken him because his eyes opened, those strange silver eyes that seemed to see right through her. "You stayed," he said, his voice rough with sleep. "You asked me to." Arya moved toward the door, suddenly aware of how intimate this was being in an alpha's bedroom at dawn. Both of them rumpled from sleep. "How's your shoulder?" Kale rotated it experimentally and winced. "Sore. But healing. Vera's stitches are holding." "Good. I should." She gestured vaguely toward the door. "People will talk if they see me leaving your room. Let them talk." Kale sat up, the blanket falling to his waist, revealing the bandaged shoulder and the map of scars across his chest and abdomen, each one a story of survival. "You helped me last night. There's nothing shameful in that." A knock interrupted before Arya could respond. "Alpha?" Riley's voice came through the door. "We have a situation. You're needed in the hall." Kale was on his feet instantly, ignoring the pain that flickered across his face. "What kind of situation?" Kale was on his situation. "The kind with official seals and dramatic declarations," Riley said dryly. "Silvermoon sent a messenger at dawn, under peace flag, but still." Kale's jaw tightened. He looked at Arya. "Get dressed and meet me in the main hall. This concerns you too." 20 minutes later, Arya entered the hall to find it packed with Blood Moon wolves. At the center stood a young Silvermoon warrior she recognized, Thomas, one of Dorian's friends. He held a sealed scroll and looked distinctly uncomfortable, surrounded by hostile wolves. Kale stood on the raised platform, fully dressed now in black leather and dark wool, every inch the alpha despite his injury. His eyes found Arya in the crowd, and he nodded toward a space near the front that the wolves had left open for her. "You have a message," Kale said, his voice carrying across the hall. "Deliver it." Thomas broke the seal and read, his voice formal. "Alpha Kale Bloodmoon, by the authority of the Council of Five Packs and the ancient laws that govern our kind, you are hereby challenged to answer for your harboring of Silvermoon wolves without proper negotiation or tribute." A rumble of anger went through the Bloodmoon wolves. Kale raised a hand for silence. Thomas continued. "Alpha Thorn Silvermoon invokes the right of reclamation, demanding the return of Arya Blackwood to Silvermoon custody, or compensation of equal value to be determined by neutral arbitration." "Bullshit," Riley muttered beside Arya. Several wolves echoed the sentiment. "Furthermore," Thomas said, and something in his tone made Arya's stomach drop, "if Alpha Kale refuses both return and compensation, Alpha Thorn challenges him to trial by combat, single combat between alphas, winner to determine the disputed wolf's fate and pack allegiance." The hall erupted. "He can't do that. It's a trap. Kale's injured. This is about humiliating us, not about getting her back." Kale's command cut through the chaos. Silence. The hall fell quiet, though anger still simmered in every wolf's eyes. "When?" Kale asked, his voice deadly calm. 3 days hence," Thomas said. "At the neutral ground, witnessed by representatives from all 5 packs as required by law. If you refuse, it will be seen as admission of wrongdoing and grounds for the council to intervene." "Tell your alpha I accept," Kale said. "No." The word burst from Arya before she could stop it. She pushed through the crowd to stand before Kale. "You can't. You're injured. Your shoulder will be healed enough in 3 days, Kale said, his eyes on hers. "And I'm not letting Thorn intimidate us into giving you up." "This isn't worth it," Arya said desperately. "I'm not worth you risking your life." "Yes, you are." His voice was firm, brooking no argument. "And more than that, this is about principle. If I let Thorn bully me into returning a refugee, every pack will think Bloodmoon is weak. They'll test our borders, challenge our authority. I can't let that happen. So I'm just political strategy?" The words came out bitter. Kale's expression softened. He reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, a gesture so gentle it made her chest ache. "Your pack. I protect what's mine. That's not strategy, that's loyalty." Thomas cleared his throat uncomfortably. "There's more. The challenge comes with conditions. If Alpha Thorn wins, Arya Blackwood returns to Silvermoon, and Alpha Kale must pay tribute of 100 gold pieces and publicly acknowledge wrongdoing. And if I win? Kale asked, though his eyes never left Arya's face. Then, Arya Blackwood's choice of pack is respected. Silvermoon pays Bloodmoon 100 gold pieces in compensation for the insult, and Alpha Thorn publicly acknowledges her as Bloodmoon pack member, with all associated rights and protections. Done, Kale said. Tell your Alpha I'll see him in 3 days. Thomas nodded, clearly relieved to be leaving. May the moon goddess guide the worthy. After he left, the hall erupted again, this time with plans, strategies, concerns about Kale's injury, speculation about Thorn's tactics. Kale raised his hand again. Riley, Finn, Sage with me in the war room. We need to prepare. Everyone else, back to your duties. And someone get Vera, I need her assessment of my healing progress. As wolves began to disperse, Arya stood frozen. This was her fault. Kale was going to risk his life because of her, because she'd been too weak to handle rejection, too pathetic to just disappear quietly like she should have. Stop. Kale's voice was quiet but commanding. The hall had mostly cleared, leaving just them and a few lingering wolves. I can see what you're thinking, and you're wrong. Am I? Arya's voice shook. You're going to fight an alpha while injured. You could die. And for what? For me? For you, Kale agreed. For every wolf in this pack who came here broken and afraid. For the principle that wolves aren't property to be claimed and traded. He stepped closer, close enough that she could feel the heat of him. And yes, because the thought of you being dragged back to people who treated you like garbage makes my wolf want to burn Silvermoon to the ground. Why? Arya whispered. Why do you care so much? Because... Kale stopped, seeming to struggle with the words. Then his hand came up to cup her face, his thumb brushing across her cheekbone. Because from the moment I saw you broken and bleeding in my forest, something in me said, mine. Not in a possessive way, but in a protective way. Like you were something precious that I'd been searching for without knowing it. Arya's breath caught. Kale, I'm not asking you to feel the same, he said quickly. I know you just escaped one bond. The last thing you need is another male claiming you belong to him. I'm just explaining why I'm fighting for you. Because you deserve to be fought for. Before Arya could respond, Vera's voice cut through the moment. All right, everyone out. I need to examine the alpha's shoulder, and I don't need an audience. She shooed away the lingering wolves with the authority only a healer could command. You too, girl. Go eat something. You look like you're about to faint. Arya let herself be herded out, her mind spinning. Riley caught up with her in the corridor. That was intense. Which part? Arya asked weakly. The death challenge, or the alpha, basically admitting he has feelings for me. Both? Riley grinned, but it faded quickly. Seriously though, are you okay? This is a lot. I don't know what I am, Arya admitted. They walked toward the communal dining hall, where breakfast smells wafted fresh bread, eggs, sausage. A week ago I was a nobody in Silvermoon, secretly mated to a male who was ashamed of me. Now I'm the reason 2 alphas are going to try to kill each other. Hey. Riley stopped her with a hand on her arm. This isn't about you being a problem. This is about Thorn being a controlling bastard who can't stand the idea of an alpha who actually protects refugees instead of creating them. They entered the dining hall, and immediately a dozen heads turned. Arya braced for judgment, or resentment. After all, their alpha was risking his life because of her. Instead, Finn stood up from his table and called out, Arya, come sit with us. She and Riley made their way over to find Finn, Sage, and Tomas gathered around a table laden with food. So, Sage said, without preamble, what's the plan? The plan? Arya repeated blankly. To make sure Kale wins. Sage's eyes were fierce. Thorn is older, more experienced, and he fights dirty. We need every advantage we can get. Kale's shoulder, Arya started. Will be healed enough, Finn interrupted. I've seen him fight through worse. But Sage is right. We need to train him smart these next 3 days. Focus on protecting that shoulder while still maintaining offensive capability. Tomas signed something, and Riley translated. He says we should also research Thorn's fighting style. Look for patterns, weaknesses. I can help with that, a new voice said. Arya turned to find Maya, the wolf Kale had mentioned, the one he'd saved from his father. She was small and delicate-looking, with warm brown eyes and flour dusting her hands. I used to watch the interpack tournaments before. Well, before. Thorn has a tell when he's about to go for a killing blow. He drops his left shoulder slightly. That's useful, Sage said, pulling out a piece of paper and starting to sketch fighting positions. What else? For the next hour, the table became a war council. Wolves who'd fought against Silvermoon before contributed observations. Someone ran to get old tournament recordings that visiting packs had traded. Maya brought honey cakes and tactical advice in equal measure. Arya sat in the middle of it all, overwhelmed by the realization that these wolves, her pack, were working together to protect their alpha, and by extension, to protect her right to choose her own fate. You know, Riley said quietly beside her, this is what real pack looks like. Not just following one strong leader, but everyone contributing their strengths to solve problems together. It's incredible, Arya murmured. It's Kale's vision, Finn said, having overheard. When he took over from his father, half the pack expected him to rule the same way through fear and domination. Instead, he said, I'm strong enough to protect you, but I'm smart enough to know I can't do it alone. Changed everything. The conversation was interrupted by Kale himself entering the dining hall, followed by Vera, who looked disgruntled. The stubborn fool wants to start training already, Vera announced to the room. I told him he needs rest, but does he listen? No. I need to know my limitations, Kale said calmly, heading for their table. Better to discover them in training than in combat. Fine, but light training only, Vera commanded. And if those stitches pop, I'm sedating you and tying you to a bed for the next 3 days. Kale's lips twitched. Yes, ma'am. He looked at the papers spread across the table, the sketches of fighting stances, the notes on Thorn's patterns. Something soft crossed his face. You're strategizing for me, he said. Of course we are, Sage said matter-of-factly. You're our alpha. We're not letting some Silvermoon prick beat you because we didn't prepare properly. Plus, Maya added with a sweet smile, if you lose, we have to deal with Thorn thinking he can push us around. That sounds terrible. The laughter that went around the table was warm and genuine, and Arya saw Kale relax slightly, the weight of leadership easing just a fraction because he wasn't carrying it alone. All right, he said, pulling up a chair. Show me what you've got. They spent the afternoon planning. By evening, they had a comprehensive strategy training focused on protecting Kale's injured shoulder while maximizing his natural advantages in speed and unpredictability. They drilled the weaknesses in Thorn's style, identified opportunities for counterattacks. But underneath all the tactical discussion, one truth remained. Alpha combat was brutal, often ending in death or permanent injury. And Kale would be walking into it not at full strength. That night, Arya couldn't sleep. She lay in her bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything that had happened in just over a week. The rejection, the flight, finding Bloodmoon, finding Kale, finding home, and now she might lose it all because Thorn couldn't stand the idea of a wolf choosing a different pack. Around midnight, she gave up on sleep and wrapped a blanket around herself, heading for the compound's eastern wall, where she knew there was a small observation deck. She wasn't surprised to find Kale already there, standing at the railing and looking out over the moonlit forest. His injured shoulder was carefully still, but his good hand gripped the railing tight enough that his knuckles were white. Couldn't sleep either? He asked without turning. No. Arya moved to stand beside him. I keep thinking about what happens if you lose. I won't lose. You can't know that. Thorn is dangerous, and you're hurt, and… Arya. Kale turned to face her, and in the moonlight, his eyes were almost luminous. I need you to understand something. I'm not fighting Thorn because I have to. I'm fighting him because I want to. Because the alternative, letting him dictate your fate, letting him think he can intimidate Bloodmoon, that's unacceptable to me. But if you die, then I die protecting something that matters. His good hand came up to cup her face, and Arya found herself leaning into the touch without thinking. Do you know what my father used to say? That the only thing worth dying for was power. That caring about individual wolves made you weak. That's horrible. It is. But it's also what I grew up believing, that the only way to be strong was to not care. His thumb brushed across her cheek. Then I met wolves like Maya, like Riley, like Finn. Wolves who'd been thrown away by packs that valued strength over loyalty. And I realized my father was wrong. The things worth dying for aren't abstract concepts like power or territory. They're the actual wolves standing beside you. The ones who choose to stay even when it's hard. Kale. Arya's voice broke on his name. You chose to stay. He continued softly. Even after everything you'd been through, even knowing this pack has enemies, even though leaving would be easier. You chose us. Chose me. How could I not fight for that? I'm scared, Arya admitted. I just found this place. Found you. The thought of losing it. Hey. Kale's other hand came up, cradling her face between his palms despite the pain it must have caused his injured shoulder. You're not going to lose anything. I'm going to win, and then you're going to be officially, irrevocably, permanently, Blood Moon Pack. No one will ever be able to question it again. Promise me, Arya whispered. Promise me you'll be careful. That you won't take unnecessary risks just to prove a point. I promise, Kale said. Then, so quietly she almost missed it. I have too much to come back to now. They stood there in the moonlight, his hands on her face, her heart hammering against her ribs. The moment stretched, heavy with unspoken words and possibilities. Then Kale stepped back, letting his hands fall. You should get some rest, he said, his voice carefully neutral. Tomorrow's going to be a long day of preparation. Arya nodded, not trusting her voice. She turned to go, then stopped. Kale? Thank you. For everything. For seeing me when I was invisible. For giving me a home when I had nowhere to go. For fighting for my right to choose. His smile was soft and genuine. That's what alphas do for their pack. Protect them. Value them. Fight for them. Is that all I am? The question slipped out before Arya could stop it. Just pack? Kale's expression shifted surprise, then something warmer. Something that made her pulse race. No, he said simply. But I don't think either of us is ready to explore what else you might be. Not yet. Not when you're still healing from having your heart broken. He was right, and Arya knew it. But some part of her, the part that had watched him defend her, fight for her, look at her like she mattered, wanted to be reckless, wanted to close the distance between them and see what happened. Instead, she nodded. Good night, Kale. Good night, Arya. As she walked back to her room, Arya realized something had shifted. The ache where her bond with Dorian had been, it was still there, still tender, but it was fading, being replaced by something different, something she was choosing rather than something fate had forced upon her. And that made all the difference. The next 2 days passed in a blur of preparation. Kale trained carefully, testing his shoulder's range of motion, adapting his fighting style to protect it, while maintaining his offensive capabilities. Arya watched from the sidelines, her heart in her throat every time he took a hit, every time he winced. But he was getting stronger. Vera's stitches held, and shifter healing was doing its work. The pack rallied around him, bringing special foods to aid healing, sharing techniques and strategies, creating an atmosphere of unified purpose. Even wolves who'd been with Blood Moon for years said they'd never seen the pack so cohesive. That's because this time it's personal, Riley explained as they watched Kale spar with Finn. Usually challenges are about territory or resources. This is about one of us. About family. On the evening before the combat, the pack gathered for what Maya called the blessing ceremony. It was apparently a Blood Moon tradition before any alpha went into dangerous combat. The pack would formally acknowledge their bond and offer their strength. Arya had never seen anything like it. One by one, wolves approached Kale and placed a hand over his heart, saying words of support or sharing memories. Maya thanked him for saving her life. Finn spoke of how Kale had given him purpose after years of aimless wandering. Riley recounted how Kale had personally carried her mate to safety when he'd been injured in a rogue attack. The testimonials went on dozens of wolves, each with their own story of how Kale had changed their lives, protected them, valued them. By the time they finished, Kale's eyes were bright with unshed tears. "You are my pack," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "My family. Everything I do to protect you, to create a place where wolves can be themselves without fear. Tomorrow, I fight for that vision, for all of you, and we stand with you," Finn said. The entire pack echoed the sentiment, a chorus of loyalty that raised goosebumps on Arya's arms. Then, Kale's eyes found her in the crowd. "Arya, come here." Her legs felt shaky as she approached. The entire pack watched as Kale took her hand. "Tomorrow I fight for your freedom," he said, "for your right to choose your own path. But I need you to know whatever happens, your pack now. If I fall, Riley will be Alpha until the pack chooses a permanent replacement. And you'll still have a home here. Always." "You're not going to fall," Arya said fiercely. "But if I do, you won't." She gripped his hand tighter. "Because I haven't properly thanked you yet. For everything. And I'm not letting you die before I get the chance." Something blazed in his silver eyes, hope, maybe, or promise. "Then I guess I'll have to win," he said softly. The pack's howl of approval shook the rafters. That night, Arya finally slept not peacefully, but deeply. And she dreamed of silver eyes and possibilities, of home and belonging, of choosing and being chosen in return. Tomorrow would determine everything. But tonight, she was pack, and that was enough. Chapter 6. Trial by Combat. The neutral ground was a clearing in the forest that belonged to no pack, a space held sacred by ancient law for exactly this purpose. Disputes between packs, challenges between alphas, trials that required witnesses from multiple territories. Arya had never been here before. Few wolves had, unless they were involved in something serious enough to require neutral arbitration. The clearing was massive, easily 100 yards across, ringed by towering pines. At the cardinal points, raised platforms had been erected for the witnessing alphas and their advisors. Representatives from Ironwood, Shadowfen, and Nightshade were already present, their eyes watchful and calculating. Politics, Arya thought bitterly. This wasn't just about her or even about Kale's challenge to traditional pack hierarchies. This was about power dynamics between territories, about alliances and enemies, about who would come out on top when the dust settled. The Blood Moon contingent arrived an hour before dawn. Kale, Riley, Finn, Sage, and Arya, along with a dozen other senior pack members. They'd traveled in silence, the weight of what was coming pressing down on all of them. Kale looked calm, centered. He wore simple leather pants and nothing else. As was traditional for alpha combat, no armor, no weapons, just fur and fang and claw when they shifted. His shoulder was still bandaged, but the stitches had held through training. Vera had cleared him that morning, though her face had been tight with worry. "Remember," Riley murmured, as they took their position on the eastern platform. "Thorn will go for the injured shoulder. He'll try to disable you early." "I know." Kale's voice was steady. His eyes scanned the clearing, cataloging exits, terrain advantages, possible complications. Then the Silver Moon party arrived. Alpha Thorn led them, and even from a distance, Arya could feel the weight of his dominance. He was older than Kale by perhaps 15 years, built like a bull with scars that spoke of countless victories. Behind him walked Dorian, Elena, and Celeste, along with their own contingent of warriors. Dorian's eyes found Arya immediately. She held his gaze, letting him see that she wasn't the broken, humiliated she-wolf who'd fled his pack. She was Blood Moon now. She was pack. He looked away first. A neutral arbiter stepped into the center of the clearing. An ancient wolf named Aemon, who'd been officiating pack disputes for 50 years. His fur was more silver than gray, and his eyes held the weight of countless battles witnessed. "By the law of our ancestors and the will of the moon goddess," Aemon's voice rang out across the clearing, "we gather to witness trial by combat between Alpha Kale of Blood Moon and Alpha Thorn of Silver Moon. The dispute, the fate and pack allegiance of the wolf known as Arya Blackwood." Arya flinched at hearing her full name broadcast like that, like she was property being contested over. Kale's hand found hers briefly, squeezed once, then released. "The terms," Aemon continued, "have been agreed upon by both parties. Should Alpha Thorn emerge victorious, Arya Blackwood returns to Silvermoon custody, and Blood Moon pays tribute of 100 gold pieces plus public acknowledgement of wrongdoing. Thorn smiled, predatory and cruel. Should Alpha Kale emerge victorious, Arya Blackwood's chosen pack allegiance to Blood Moon is recognized and protected by all 5 packs. Silvermoon pays tribute of 100 gold pieces, and Alpha Thorn publicly acknowledges her as Blood Moon pack, with all associated rights. Kale's expression remained impassive, but Arya could see the tension in his shoulders, the careful way he held his injured side. Combat begins at first light and ends with death, submission, or inability to continue. The Moon Goddess witnessed this trial and judged the worthy. Aemon stepped back. Alphas, take your positions. Kale turned to face Arya one last time. Whatever happens, don't, she said fiercely. Don't say goodbye. Say see you soon. His smile was slight, but genuine. See you soon, Arya. He walked into the clearing, and Thorn met him in the center. They circled each other, and Arya could see them sizing each other up, looking for weaknesses, for openings, for the split second of advantage that could end everything. The first rays of sunlight broke over the horizon. Begin! Aemon's command cracked like thunder. Both alphas shifted in an explosion of power and fur. Kale's black wolf was massive, but lean, built for speed and agility. Thorn's gray wolf was heavier, stockier, clearly built to overpower opponents through sheer strength. They clashed in the center with a sound like colliding boulders. Thorn went immediately for Kale's injured shoulder, just as they'd predicted. But Kale was ready, pivoting at the last second, so Thorn's teeth snapped on air. He countered with a slash across Thorn's flank, drawing first blood. The watching packs murmured. First blood was significant. It showed who had the advantage in those critical opening seconds. But Thorn was far from finished. He charged again, using his weight to try to bowl Kale over. This time he connected, and both wolves went tumbling, a snarling mass of fur and fangs. Arya's hands gripped the railing of the platform so hard her knuckles went white. Beside her, Riley maintained a stream of quiet commentary. Good, he's keeping mobile. Watch the left side. There. See how he's protecting the shoulder. The fight was brutal and fast. Thorn fought like a brawler, all power and aggression, trying to use his weight advantage to pin Kale down. Kale fought like a dancer, ducking, weaving, using Thorn's momentum against him, landing quick strikes and then flowing away before Thorn could retaliate. But it was taking its toll. Arya could see Kale favoring his shoulder, see the slight hitch in his movements when he had to use it. Thorn saw it too. He pressed harder, going for that shoulder again and again, forcing Kale to defend, to react rather than attack. He's getting tired, Finn muttered. This can't go on much longer. Then Thorn got lucky. He feinted left, and when Kale moved to counter, Thorn pivoted and slammed into Kale's injured side. His teeth found purchase in the bandaged shoulder, right where Vera's stitches held. Kale's howl of pain echoed across the clearing. No! Arya surged forward, but Riley and Finn held her back. You can't interfere, Riley hissed. It'll disqualify him. Blood sprayed, the stitches had torn. Thorn shook his head viciously, trying to worsen the injury, to disable Kale's front leg entirely. But Kale didn't panic. Even through the pain, he was thinking. He went limp suddenly, letting his weight drop. Thorn, expecting resistance, overbalanced. In that split second of vulnerability, Kale twisted and got his jaws around Thorn's throat. Not crushing, not yet, but a clear message. I can kill you right now. Thorn froze. The clearing went silent. For a long moment, the two alphas stayed locked in that position. Thorn's teeth in Kale's shoulder, Kale's teeth at Thorn's jugular. A stalemate that could go either way. Then Kale did something unexpected. He released Thorn's throat and shoved away, putting distance between them despite his injury. Blood poured from his shoulder, matting his black fur with crimson. Thorn shifted to human form, breathing hard. Why did you let go? You had me. Kale shifted as well, his human form showing the extent of the damage. His entire left side was slick with blood, and his arm hung uselessly, but his voice was steady, because this was never about killing you. It was about proving a point. And what point is that? Thorn snarled. That strength isn't just about who can do the most damage. It's about who can protect what matters. Kale swayed slightly but remained standing. You came here to reclaim property. I came here to defend a wolf's right to choose her own fate. We're not the same. Philosophical nonsense, Thorn spat. You're weak. You let your emotions cloud your judgment. No. I let my principles guide my actions. There's a difference. Kale's silver eyes were hard. You want Arya back because you can't stand that a wolf chose to leave Silvermoon. It's about your pride, not about her well-being. That makes you a tyrant, not a leader. Thorn's face purpled with rage. You self-righteous. Enough talk. Kale shifted back to wolf form, though the movement clearly cost him. Let's finish this. They charged at each other again, and this time there was a finality to it. This was the last exchange one way or another. It would end here. Thorn went for the injured shoulder again, but Kale had been counting on it. He'd been using the injury to make Thorn predictable, to establish a pattern. At the last second, Kale dropped and rolled, using Thorn's momentum to throw him off balance. Before Thorn could recover, Kale was on his back, jaws locked around the back of his neck. The kill position. Yield! Aemon's voice rang out. Alpha Thorn, do you yield? Thorn struggled, but Kale's grip was unbreakable despite his injury. Blood from Kale's shoulder dripped onto Thorn's gray fur, mixing with dirt and sweat. Yield! Aemon demanded again. I yield. Thorn choked out. Kale released him immediately and staggered back. He shifted to human form and nearly collapsed, saved only by Finn, who'd vaulted the platform railing to catch him. Get Vera, Finn shouted. But Arya was already moving. She didn't care about protocol or witnesses or what the other packs thought. She ran into the clearing, dropping to her knees beside where Finn had lowered Kale to the ground. You idiot, she said, her voice breaking as she pressed her hands against his bleeding shoulder, trying to stanch the flow. You beautiful, stubborn, incredible idiot. Kale's laugh was weak but genuine. Did I win? Yes, you won, you absolute fool. Tears streamed down her face. You could have died, but I didn't. His good hand came up to touch her face, smearing blood across her cheek. You're free now. Officially. No one can question it. Vera arrived with her medical kit, shoving Arya aside with practiced efficiency. Out of my way, girl. Let me work. As Vera worked to restitch and bind Kale's shoulder, Aemon addressed the gathered packs. By ancient law and trial by combat, I declare Alpha Kale Bloodmoon victorious. The wolf Arya Blackwood is hereby recognized as Bloodmoon Pack, with all rights and protections afforded to pack members. Alpha Thorn, you will pay the agreed tribute and make public acknowledgement. Thorn, now back in human form and being tended by his own healer, looked like he wanted to argue. But law was law, and dozens of witnesses from multiple packs had seen him yield. I acknowledge, he said through gritted teeth, that Arya Blackwood is Bloodmoon Pack. Her allegiance is her own choice, recognized and protected. Dorian stepped forward then, and Arya tensed. But he didn't look at her. His eyes were on his father, and there was something like disappointment in them. This was wrong, Dorian said quietly. All of this. We should have let her go with dignity instead of turning it into a spectacle. Silence, Thorn snapped. We'll discuss your opinions later. But the damage was done. Several of the Silvermoon wolves were looking at their alpha with expressions that suggested Dorian wasn't the only one who thought this had been a step too far. Can you stand? Vera asked Kale. With help. He accepted Finn's support and got to his feet, swaying. His shoulder was freshly bandaged, but blood was already seeping through. Let's go home. The word home hit Arya like a physical blow, because that's what Bloodmoon was now. Not just a place she was staying. Not just a pack that had taken her in. Home. The journey back was slow. Kale was in no condition to rush, and the pack surrounded him protectively not because they thought anyone would attack, but because that's what pack did. They protected each other. They were halfway back to Bloodmoon territory when Kale stumbled and nearly went down. That's it, Vera declared. We're stopping. He needs rest before we go further. They made camp in a small clearing, and Vera forced Kale to lie down while she checked his injuries again. The stitches are holding, "But barely," she muttered. "You're lucky you didn't bleed out in that clearing. What were you thinking, shifting back and forth like that? Every transformation stresses the wound." "I was thinking I needed to win," Kale said dryly. "Well, you won, and now you're going to rest, if I have to sit on you." While Vera fussed over Kale, Arya found herself apart from the group, staring back in the direction of the neutral ground, of Silvermoon territory beyond it. "You okay?" Riley appeared beside her, offering a water skin. "I don't know," Arya admitted. "Everything just changed. Again. For the better this time, though." Riley bumped her shoulder gently. "You're officially Pack now. No one can ever take that away from you." "He almost died for me." "He almost died for principle," Riley corrected. "Don't get me wrong, you matter to him, probably more than he's ready to admit. But Kale would have fought just as hard for any wolf's right to choose their own fate. That's who he is." "I know." Arya's voice was soft. "That's what makes him special?" Riley supplied with a knowing grin. "Different from your ex? Actually worthy of respect and affection?" "All of that." Arya couldn't help smiling. "Is it too soon to feel something for someone else? The rejection was barely a week ago." "Honey, the rejection was your bond with Dorian ending. What you're feeling now isn't rebounding, it's finally being free to actually choose someone instead of being biologically compelled." Riley squeezed her shoulder. "Take your time, figure out what you want. But don't punish yourself for feeling something real just because the fake thing ended recently." A commotion near Kale made them turn. He was trying to sit up despite Vera's protests. "Arya," he called. "Come here." She approached warily, aware of all the eyes on her. Kale patted the ground beside him. "Sit. I need to say something while witnesses are present." Arya sat, confused. Riley, Finn, Sage, and several other senior Pack members gathered around. "Arya Blackwood," Kale said formally. And despite his injuries, his voice carried the full weight of his alpha authority. "You came to Bloodmoon as a refugee. You stayed as a guest. Today, you became Pack through trial by combat. But I want to offer you something more." "My rest." Arya's heart hammered. "What?" "A formal position. Every Pack needs members who understand what it's like to be broken and rebuild, who can help refugees integrate, who can spot wolves in crisis, who can be a bridge between those who were born Pack and those who chose it." His silver eyes held hers. "I want you to be Bloodmoon's advocate. The wolf who speaks for those who can't speak for themselves. Who ensures no one falls through the cracks." Arya stared at him, speechless. "You don't have to answer now," Kale continued. "Think about it, but I believe you'd be perfect for it. You understand both sides' rejection and acceptance, being invisible and being seen. That's valuable." Arya's voice caught. "Yes. I don't need to think about it." "Yes." Kale's smile was brilliant despite his pallor. "Good, Riley. Finn witnessed this. Arya Blackwood is hereby named Bloodmoon's advocate, with all the authority and responsibility that entails." "Witnessed," they said in unison. "Now," Vera said tartly, "if everyone is done making grand pronouncements, the Alpha needs sleep. Actually sleep, not sitting up making speeches." Kale let himself be bullied into lying back down, but his hand caught Arya's wrist. "Thank you," he said quietly, "just for her. For giving me something worth fighting for." "You're the one who fought," Arya protested. "No, you fought first when you stood up in front of 5 Packs and claimed what was yours, even knowing it would destroy you. That took more courage than anything I did today." His thumb brushed across her pulse point. "I'm just following your example." Before Arya could respond, his eyes drifted closed. Exhaustion and blood loss, finally catching up with him. She sat beside him as he slept, her wrist still in his loose grip, and thought about courage, about choosing, about what it meant to finally, truly be seen. The sun climbed higher as the Pack rested, and for the first time in her life, Arya felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be, home. Chapter 7. Revelations. 3 weeks passed in a blur of healing and transition. Kale's shoulder recovered slowly, much to Vera's ongoing frustration and his own impatience. He chafed at being confined to light duties, but the Pack had rallied around him. Riley and Finn handled most of the physical alpha responsibilities, while Cale focused on strategy and diplomacy from his recovery room. Arya, meanwhile, threw herself into her new role as advocate. It was strange, having a purpose beyond simply existing. In Silvermoon, she'd been nobody too low-ranked to matter, too plain to notice, useful only as a servant during pack functions. Here, wolves sought her out, asked her advice, valued her input. The first wolf she'd helped was a young male named Carter who'd arrived at the border half-starved and terrified. He'd been exiled from Shadowfen for refusing to participate in what he called culling raids against weaker neighboring territories. Arya had sat with him through his first night, sharing her own story of rejection and exile, helping him understand that leaving didn't make him weak, it made him principled. Within a week, he was training with the others, his haunted expression gradually replaced by cautious hope. Then came Sarah, a female who'd fled an abusive mate in Ironwood. Then twins from a pack out west, who'd been separated from their parents during a rogue attack. Then an elderly wolf whose pack had deemed him too old to be worth feeding. Each one, Arya welcomed. Each one, she helped integrate. And with each one, she understood more deeply what Cale had built here, not just a pack, but a sanctuary. But there were complications. Word of Cale's victory had spread through the territories, and not everyone was pleased. Some saw Bloodmoon's open-door policy as a threat if wolves could simply choose to leave their birth packs without consequence. What did that mean for traditional pack structures? Arya was working through correspondence one afternoon, requests for asylum, questions about Bloodmoon's policies, even a few threats from neighboring alphas when Riley burst into her small office. "We have a situation," Riley said, her face grim. "Silvermoon delegation at the border. They're requesting a formal meeting with Cale." Arya's stomach dropped. "What do they want?" "They won't say, but Dorian's with them." Of course he was. They found Cale in the main hall, already dressed for a formal meeting despite Vera's protests. His shoulder was still bandaged beneath his shirt, but he moved with only a slight stiffness now. "How many?" he asked Riley. "5. Dorian, Celeste, and 3 warriors, all under peace flag." Cale's eyes found Arya's. "Do you want to be there?" She should say no, should let Cale handle this without the complication of her presence. But some stubborn part of her refused to hide. "Yes," she said. "I want to be there." The meeting was held in the formal receiving room, a space Bloodmoon rarely used, but which existed for exactly these situations. It was elegant but austere, with dark wood and simple decorations that conveyed strength without ostentation. The Silvermoon delegation was already waiting when they arrived. Dorian looked different. Thinner, maybe, with shadows under his eyes that hadn't been there before. Celeste stood beside him, her expression unreadable. "Alpha Cale," Dorian said formally. "Thank you for receiving us." "You have 5 minutes to state your business," Cale replied, his voice cool and professional. He'd positioned himself slightly in front of Arya, not obviously protective, but enough that anyone would have to go through him to reach her. Dorian's eyes flicked to Arya, then back to Cale. "I've come to negotiate the return of Silvermoon property that was taken during our last encounter." Arya felt Cale go rigid beside her. "If you're referring to Arya..." "No," Dorian held up a hand. "Not Arya. I'm talking about the 3 wolves who defected to Bloodmoon after the trial. They left without permission, and my father wants them returned." Riley made a scoffing sound. "Let me guess your father considers wolves to be property that can be reclaimed at will." "My father considers pack bonds to be sacred," Dorian said, but there was no conviction in his voice. "And wolves who break those bonds to be oath breakers. Did they break oaths, or did they exercise their right to leave a pack that no longer served them?" Cale's voice was deceptively mild. "Because from where I'm standing, wolves who watched their alpha try to bully another pack into returning a refugee might reasonably question what other principles their leadership is willing to compromise." Dorian flinched. "I'm not here to debate philosophy. I'm here to formally request the return of Silvermoon wolves who were granted asylum in Bloodmoon after presenting legitimate concerns about their treatment," Cale interrupted. "The same way Arya was granted asylum. The same way any wolf who comes to my border seeking refuge will be granted asylum. That's not theft, that's protection. My father won't see it that way." "I don't care how your father sees it," Kale's voice hardened. He lost the right to dictate terms when he yielded in combat. The trial established that wolves have the right to choose their pack allegiance. If 3 of your wolves chose to leave, that's between them and Silver Moon. It has nothing to do with Blood Moon. Celeste stepped forward then, and Arya tensed. Her sister's eyes were fixed on her. Arya, Celeste said softly. Can we talk? Privately? No, Kale said before Arya could respond. I'm not going to hurt her, Celeste said, frustration creeping into her voice. She's my sister. I just want to talk. Arya touched Kale's arm. It's okay. Let me hear what she has to say. Kale's jaw tightened, but he nodded. 5 minutes, and I'll be right outside. They moved to a small antechamber off the main room. Celeste stood by the window, her back to Arya, looking out over the Blood Moon compound. You've done well for yourself, Celeste said finally. Advocate. That's quite a title. It's a responsibility, not a title, Arya corrected. What do you want, Celeste? Her sister turned, and Arya was shocked to see tears in her eyes. I want to say I'm sorry, for everything, for not standing up for you that night, for not coming after you sooner, for believing Father when he said you'd be better off forgotten. Arya's throat tightened. Why now? What changed? Watching Kale fight for you. Celeste's voice was thick. Watching him risk his life to defend your right to choose, while your own family, your own pack did nothing. It made me realize how far we'd fallen. How far I'd fallen. Celeste. Mother's been crying every night since you left, Celeste continued. She won't say it out loud, but I think she's ashamed. We all are. And Dorian. She laughed bitterly. Dorian's been a mess. His mating to Elena is a disaster. She's cold, calculating, and Father treats her like a political asset instead of a daughter-in-law. I think Dorian finally realized what he gave up. Good, Arya said, and was surprised by how much she meant it. Not vindictively, but matter-of-factly. He made his choice. Now he gets to live with it. He wants to apologize to you. No. The word came out firm, final. I don't want his apology. I don't need it. What happened between us is over. I've moved on. Celeste studied her face. You have, haven't you? You look different. Stronger. Happier. I am happier. Blood Moon is my home now. These wolves are my family. I finally have a place where I'm valued for who I am, not just tolerated because of biology. I'm glad, Celeste said, and she sounded like she meant it. Really, I am. You deserve that. She hesitated, then asked, The Alpha Kale. Is he? Are you? That's none of your business, Arya said, but without heat. Fair enough. Celeste moved toward the door, then paused. For what it's worth, the way he looks at you? That's how Dorian should have looked at you. Like you're the most important thing in the world. Like he'd burn down the forest to keep you safe. After Celeste left, Arya stood alone in the antechamber, processing. She'd expected confrontation, maybe accusations, not apology, not closure. When she returned to the main room, the Silver Moon delegation was preparing to leave. Dorian's eyes found hers one last time. I'm sorry, he said quietly. For all of it. You deserved better than what I gave you. Yes, Arya agreed calmly. I did. But I found better. So thank you, actually, for rejecting me. It freed me to find where I really belong. Something broke in his expression. Grief, maybe, or regret. But Arya felt nothing. The bond was truly dead. And where it had been, something new was growing. After the Silver Moon wolves left, Kale turned to her. Are you all right? I'm fine. Actually, I'm better than fine. That was cathartic, in a way. Seeing them again and feeling nothing but gratitude that I'm not there anymore. Good. Kale's hand came up to cup her cheek, a gesture that was becoming familiar, comfortable. You deserve peace. Riley cleared her throat loudly. So, that was interesting. Think Thorn will actually leave us alone now? Doubtful, Kale said, his hand falling away from Arya's face. But at least we've established clear boundaries. If more Silver Moon wolves defect, they know they'll find sanctuary here. That's going to make us even more of a target, Finn pointed out. Maybe. Or maybe it will make other alphas think twice about their policies when they realize their wolves have options. Kale's smile was slight but satisfied. Change doesn't come from maintaining the status quo. Over the next week, Arya threw herself back into her work with renewed energy. The interaction with Celeste and Dorian had lifted a weight she hadn't realized she'd been carrying, the lingering question of whether she'd made the right choice. Now, she knew without doubt that she had. But something else was happening. Something she was trying hard not to examine too closely. She was falling for Kale. Not the forced, biological compulsion of the mate bond. Not the desperate need to be wanted that had made her cling to Dorian's secret attention. This was different, quieter, deeper. Built on actual foundation of respect and shared values and genuine care. It terrified her. She was in her office late one evening, reviewing applications from wolves seeking asylum, when Kale appeared in the doorway. "You're working too late," he said. His shoulder was finally fully healed. She noticed he moved without any stiffness now. "So are you?" "Apparently." Arya gestured to the papers spread across her desk. "We have 17 new applications this week alone. Word is spreading." "That's good. Means we're building something that matters." He moved into the room. And Arya was suddenly very aware of how small the space was. How close he was. "But you need rest too. You're no good to anyone if you burn yourself out." "I'm fine." "Arya." He said her name softly, like a prayer. "You don't have to prove yourself anymore. You've already proven you're invaluable. You can take breaks." "I don't know how to take breaks," she admitted. "All my life, I had to work twice as hard as everyone else, just to be seen as half as good. I can't just stop." Kale pulled up a chair and sat across from her. "That was in Silvermoon, where your worth was judged by superficial measures. Here, your worth is inherent. You don't have to earn your place over and over again, you already have it. Intellectually, I know that, but emotionally..." She trailed off, frustrated with herself. "It takes time," Kale said gently, "undoing years of conditioning. But I promise you, every wolf in this pack values you, not for what you do, but for who you are. Even you." The question slipped out before she could stop it. Kale's silver eyes held hers, intense and searching. "Especially me." The air between them felt charged, heavy with unspoken words. Arya's heart hammered against her ribs. "Kale, A sharp knock on the door interrupted. Riley stuck her head in, her expression apologetic. "Sorry to interrupt, but we have a situation at the north border. Rogue pack, about a dozen strong. They're requesting asylum en masse." Kale stood immediately, and the moment shattered. "I'll handle it. Arya, get some rest. That's an order from your alpha." He was gone before she could respond, Riley trailing behind him. Arya sat in the suddenly empty office, her heart still racing, wondering what she'd been about to say, wondering what he'd been about to say, wondering if she was ready to find out. The rogue pack that arrived that night changed everything. They were led by a female alpha named Mira, compact, fierce, with scars across her face that spoke of hard living. Her pack was made up entirely of exiles and refugees, wolves who'd banded together for survival after being cast out by their birth packs. "We've been watching Blood Moon," Mira told Kale in the main hall, her pack gathered behind her. "Watching what you've built, a place where outcasts can thrive. We want to be part of that. Integrating a dozen wolves at once is complicated," Kale said, but Arya could see he was already planning how to make it work. "You'd all have to accept Blood Moon law, Blood Moon authority." "We accept," Mira said without hesitation. "I'm tired of running. My wolves are tired of running. We want a home." The word home resonated through the hall. How many times had Arya heard it now? How many wolves had come here seeking exactly that? "Then you have one," Kale said. "Welcome to Blood Moon." The integration process was intense. Mira's pack had to be housed, fed, evaluated for skills and assigned roles. Arya worked alongside Kale and Riley, conducting interviews, assessing needs, helping the newcomers adjust. It was during one of these interviews that Arya noticed something strange. One of Mira's pack members, a quiet male named Silas, kept staring at Kale with an expression Arya couldn't quite read. Not hostile, but intense. Searching. Silas? Arya prompted gently. You were saying you have experience as a tracker? What? He startled, his eyes snapping back to her. Oh. Yes. I've been tracking for 10 years. Mostly game. But also other things. Other things? He hesitated, his eyes darting to Kale again. I used to work for Alpha Thorn. Before I left, the room went quiet. Kale, who'd been reviewing papers at the desk, looked up sharply. You were Silvermoon? Kale's voice was carefully neutral. For 15 years, yes. I left 5 years ago, when Thorn ordered me to track down and eliminate a group of young wolves who'd fled the pack. They were just kids, teenagers who didn't fit Silvermoon's ideals. I couldn't. He swallowed hard. I let them go and ran. Been rogue ever since. Why are you telling us this? Arya asked. Silas's eyes locked on Kale. Because I know something about you. Something I learned when I was still Silvermoon. Something Thorn knows too, but keeps secret. Every wolf in the room tensed. Kale stood slowly, his alpha presence filling the space. What secret? Kale's voice was dangerously quiet. You're not just any alpha. Silas said. You're a true alpha, the first one born in 3 generations. Arya's breath caught. True alphas were legend wolves, born with alpha power rather than claiming it through challenge or inheritance. They were rare, maybe appearing once every 100 years, and they were exponentially more powerful than regular alphas. That's impossible, Riley breathed. It's not. I saw the records. Thorn's father discovered it when Kale was born, the silver eyes. The excessive power, even as an infant. He planned to use it, to leverage Kale's existence for Silvermoon's benefit. That's why he tried so hard to arrange a mating between your father and a Silvermoon female 30 years ago. Silas looked at Kale. Your mother was Silvermoon. Did you know that? Kale had gone very still. My father said she died in childbirth. She did. But before that, she was Silvermoon Pack. She mated your father against Thorn's wishes, his grandfather actually. When you were born and they realized what you were, they wanted to take you back. Your father refused and fled to what became Blood Moon territory. Why keep this secret? Finn demanded. Because true alphas can challenge pack structures themselves, Silas explained. They can claim wolves from other packs without combat. They can create bonds that override traditional pack loyalty. If the other alphas knew what Kale was, they'd either try to kill him or try to use him. Thorn's grandfather calculated that keeping it secret was safer at least, until they could figure out how to control him. Arya's mind was racing. This explained so much why Kale's presence was so powerful. Why wolves gravitated to him naturally. Why his pack was so fiercely loyal. Does Thorn know? Kale asked, his voice carefully controlled. He knows. He's known since his father told him. That's why he was so determined to get Arya back, not because he cared about one rejected she-wolf, but because he wanted to test you, to see how far you'd go to protect a pack member, to measure your power. And what was he planning to do with that information? Silas's expression was grim. I don't know, but Thorn doesn't do anything without calculating every angle. If he knows what you are, he has plans. Probably ones that don't end well for Blood Moon. The room erupted in discussion, some wolves excited by the revelation, others worried about what it meant, everyone talking over each other. Kale held up a hand for silence. When he spoke, his voice was steady despite the bomb that had just been dropped. This changes nothing, he said. True alpha or not, my purpose remains the same: to protect wolves who need protection, to build a pack where everyone has value. If Thorn wants to use this information against me, let him try. We'll be ready. But as the meeting dispersed and wolves filed out talking in hushed, excited tones, Arya saw the tension in Kale's shoulders, the way his hands clenched and released. She waited until the room was empty, then approached him. Are you okay? I don't know, he admitted. All my life, I thought I was just me. Maybe a bit stronger than average, but nothing special. Now I'm finding out I'm some kind of legendary anomaly that people have been keeping secret and probably scheming about for 30 years. You're still you, Arya said firmly. True alpha or regular alpha, You're still the wolf who built this place, who takes in refugees and values everyone, who fought for my right to choose my own fate. None of that changes because of genetics." Kale turned to look at her, and the vulnerability in his eyes made her chest ache. "What if he's right?" Kale said quietly. "What if Thorn has been planning something all along? What if by building this place, by taking in all these wolves, I've made them targets? Then we fight." Arya took his hands, gripping them tightly. "Together, as a pack. That's what you've taught us, that we're stronger together than we ever could be alone." His hands tightened on hers. "When did you get so wise?" "I learned from a very stubborn alpha who refuses to give up on anyone." They stood there, hands clasped, and Arya felt the weight of everything unsaid between them. The attraction that had been building for weeks. The connection that felt deeper than simple friendship or pack loyalty. "Arya," Kale said, his voice rough, "there's something I need to tell you." Her heart hammered. "What?" "The true alpha thing, it comes with abilities. One of them is, I can sense potential bonds. Not mate bonds exactly, but compatibility. Wolves who could form something deep and lasting if they chose to." "Okay," Arya said slowly, not sure where this was going. "From the moment I met you, my wolf has been screaming that you're compatible. That we could." He trailed off, seeming to struggle with the words. "I didn't want to tell you because I didn't want you to feel pressured. You'd just escaped one bond. The last thing you needed was another alpha claiming you belonged with him." Arya's breath caught. But I can't pretend anymore that what I feel for you is just protective instinct or alpha responsibility." His silver eyes burned into hers. "I'm falling for you, Arya. Have been since that first night when you were broken and bleeding, and still brave enough to follow me into the unknown. And I need you to know that before whatever's coming arrives." The world seemed to narrow to just the two of them, to the space between their bodies, to the choice that hung in the air like a physical presence. Arya had been rejected, humiliated, broken by a bond that was supposed to be fated and perfect. Every instinct said to be careful, to protect herself, to not risk this too. But Kale wasn't Dorian. And what she felt for him wasn't the forced compulsion of a mate bond, it was real, chosen, built on foundation of mutual respect and genuine care. "I'm falling for you too," she whispered. The smile that broke across Kale's face was like sunrise, brilliant and transformative. He cupped her face in his hands, his touch gentle despite his strength. "Can I kiss you?" "Yes." He leaned in slowly, giving her every chance to change her mind, to pull away. But Arya didn't want to pull away. She wanted him with a clarity that had nothing to do with biology and everything to do with choice. Their lips met, and it was nothing like the desperate, needy kisses she'd shared with Dorian in secret. This was different, slower, deeper, full of promise and possibility. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Kale rested his forehead against hers. "Whatever's coming," he said softly, "we face it together." "Together," Arya agreed. And for the first time since the rejection, she felt truly, completely whole. Chapter 8. The Gathering Storm. The next morning, Blood Moon woke to find their world had shifted overnight. News of Kale being a true alpha spread through the pack like wildfire, not as a secret to keep, but as a point of pride. Their alpha wasn't just strong, wasn't just principled, he was legendary. Born with power that hadn't been seen in generations. But with pride came worry. "If we know, other packs will know soon," Riley said during the emergency council meeting Kale had called at dawn. Arya sat beside him now, not just as advocate but as… what? His partner? The thought made her pulse quicken. "Silas says Thorn has known for years," Kale replied. "If he hasn't shared the information yet, there's a reason. He's been waiting," Mira said. The former rogue alpha had proven invaluable in the 2 days since her arrival, her strategic mind complementing Kale's perfectly, building alliances, setting pieces on the board. A true alpha is a threat to every established pack structure. He'd want to be sure he could neutralize you before revealing what you are. "So what's his play?" Finn asked. Before anyone could answer, a scout burst into the room, breathing hard. "Alpha. 4 packs approaching from different directions. Silvermoon, Ironwood, Shadowfen, and Nightshade, all under war banners. The room went silent. How many? Kale's voice was deadly calm. At least 200 wolves. Maybe more. They're converging on our territory from all sides. Arya felt her blood turn to ice. 4 packs. United against Bloodmoon. This wasn't a border skirmish or a political challenge, this was an army. It's a siege, Sage said, her face grim. They're going to surround us and force us to either submit, or starve, or fight our way out, Riley added. But against those numbers, we have maybe 80 wolves, Finn said. Even with true alpha power, those aren't winning odds. Kale stood, and despite the dire situation, his presence filled the room with calm determination. Then we don't win through force. We win through strategy. Mira, what do you know about siege tactics? Enough to know that 4 packs working together is unprecedented, Mira said. That alone tells us how threatened they are by what you represent. A true alpha who builds power through refuge and choice rather than domination and control. You're a living challenge to their entire system. Good, Kale said, and his smile was sharp. Let's use that. Over the next hour, they planned. Not for battle, they couldn't win a direct confrontation, but for survival and exposure. Kale's strategy was brilliant in its simplicity. Make the other packs reveal their true intentions in front of witnesses. We request neutral arbitration, Kale explained. Force them to either back down or admit they're attacking us without cause. Either way, we win the political battle. Who would arbitrate? Arya asked. The Council of 5 Packs is the usual authority, but 4 of those 5 are attacking us. Then we go higher. Kale's eyes gleamed. We invoke the ancient right of assembly. Every pack in the region must send representatives. We make this public, force them to justify their actions in front of everyone. That's risky, Riley said. If the assembly sides with them, they won't. Kale's certainty was absolute, because we're not the ones breaking laws. They are. An unprovoked attack on a sovereign pack is against every code we have. If they go through with this, every smaller pack in the region will see that the powerful can do whatever they want. That creates chaos, and nobody wants that. It's brilliant, Mira said slowly. You're weaponizing their own rules against them. But there's one problem: you have to survive long enough for the assembly to gather. How long? Finn asked. 3 days, maybe 4. Every pack in the region has to be notified and given time to send representatives. Can we hold out that long? Kale looked around the room at his council wolves he trusted, wolves who'd built this place alongside him. His eyes landed on Arya last, and the weight of his gaze made her breath catch. We can, he said. We will. Because what we've built here matters more than territory or power. And I'm not letting anyone destroy it. The first day of the siege was tense, but quiet. The 4 packs positioned themselves at the cardinal points around Bloodmoon territory, establishing camps and patrols. They didn't attack, not yet, but their presence was a constant pressure, a reminder that they could overwhelm Bloodmoon anytime they chose. Kale sent out the call for assembly through official channels, a formal request that couldn't be ignored without consequences. Now they just had to wait, and hope that enough neutral packs would answer the call. We need to prepare for the worst, Riley said as they conducted inventory. If the assembly doesn't come, or if they side against us, then we fight, Arya said. It surprised her how steady her voice was. A month ago, she'd been a nobody who'd never stood up for anything. Now she was preparing for war. We fight and we run if we have to, but we don't surrender. Riley studied her face. You've changed, you know that, right? The scared she-wolf who stumbled across our border is gone. She's not gone, Arya corrected. She just found something worth fighting for. That evening, Kale climbed to the highest point of the compound, a watchtower that overlooked the forest. Arya found him there, staring out at the distant campfires of the siege army. You should be resting, she said, climbing up to join him. Can't. Too much to think about. He didn't look at her, his eyes fixed on the forest. I keep running scenarios. Ways this could go wrong. Wolves who could get hurt because of choices I made. Wolves who are here because of choices they made, Arya corrected, moving to stand beside him. Every wolf in this pack chose to be here, chose to follow you, chose to be part of what you're building. You didn't force anyone. Didn't I? Kale's voice was raw. By creating this place, by offering refuge, I made them targets. Maybe my father was right. Maybe caring about individual wolves is a weakness that gets them killed. Your father was wrong about everything, Arya said fiercely. And you know it. Look at what you've built, not just a pack, but a family. Wolves who would die for each other not because they're forced to, but because they actually care. That's not weakness. That's the strongest thing in the world. Kale finally turned to look at her, and the vulnerability in his eyes made her chest ache. What if I can't protect them? What if this true alpha power isn't enough? Then we'll figure it out together. Arya took his hand, threading her fingers through his. You're not alone in this, Kale. You have a whole pack of wolves who are just as committed to protecting this place as you are. Use us. Trust us. I do trust you. His grip tightened on her hand. More than I've ever trusted anyone. They stood in silence for a moment, hands clasped, looking out over the territory they were fighting to keep. Can I ask you something? Arya said quietly. Always. This true alpha thing, the ability to sense compatible bonds, is that what you feel with me? Just compatibility? Or is it? She trailed off, not sure how to finish the question. Kale turned to face her fully, using their joined hands to pull her closer. The compatibility is there, yes. My wolf recognizes yours as a potential mate, but that's just biology, Arya. What I feel for you, the way my heart races when you walk into a room, the way I want to share every thought with you, the way I'd burn down the world to keep you safe, that's all choice. All me. Choosing you. I choose you too, Arya whispered. I think I have been since that first night. When you gave me your jacket and treated me like I mattered. You do matter. Kale's free hand came up to cup her face. You matter more than you know. He kissed her then, deep and slow and full of promise, and Arya kissed him back, pouring everything she felt into it, gratitude and affection and trust, and the beginnings of love. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Kale rested his forehead against hers. When this is over, he said softly. When the siege is lifted, and the assembly has ruled in our favor, and we're safe again, I want to court you properly. Not in secret, not in stolen moments, openly, with the whole pack knowing. I want everyone to see that you're mine, and I'm yours. Arya's heart stuttered. What about the mate bond? I don't have one anymore. The rejection broke it. You're a true alpha, you deserve a proper mate. I don't want a mate bond, Kale said firmly. I don't want biology forcing us together or telling us how to feel. I want what we're building, a choice made freely, every day, to be together. That's worth more than any bond. Tears pricked at Arya's eyes. Yes, when this is over, yes. They sealed it with another kiss, and for a moment, the siege and the danger and the uncertainty all faded away. There was just them, choosing each other, building something real. Then a howl split the night, a warning from the western border. They were moving. Kale and Arya raced down from the watchtower to find the compound in controlled chaos. Wolves running to positions, weapons being distributed, civilians being moved to the most protected buildings. Report, Kale barked as he reached the main hall. Finn skidded to a halt in front of him. Silvermoon forces are advancing. Not a full attack, just a probe. But they're testing our defenses at 3 points simultaneously. Smart, Mira said, arriving with Sage. They're looking for weak spots before committing to a real assault. Then we don't give them any, Kale said. Finn, take the north defense. Sage, south. Riley, east. I'll handle west where Silvermoon is pushing. I'm coming with you, Arya said. Arya, I'm coming, she repeated firmly. I'm advocate. Part of my job is protecting this pack. And like it or not, Silvermoon is my former pack. I know how they think, how they fight. Kale looked like he wanted to argue, but Riley cut in. She's right. Use every advantage we have. Fine, Kale conceded. But you stay behind me. And if I tell you to run, you run. Understand? I understand. Arya didn't mention that she had no intention of running if it came to that. The western border was chaos when they arrived. A dozen Silvermoon wolves were engaging Bloodmoon defenders, but something was off. They weren't really trying to break through, they were just keeping the Bloodmoon wolves busy. It's a distraction, Arya realized. They're pulling our forces here while they do something elsewhere. Kale's eyes narrowed. But where? Then Arya saw him, standing just beyond the tree line, watching the fight with calculating eyes. Dorian. Their eyes met across the distance, and he gestured, "Come talk." "It's a trap," Riley said immediately. "Maybe," Kale agreed, "but maybe it's information. Arya, stay here." "No." Arya stepped forward. "He wants to talk to me. Let me hear what he has to say." "Absolutely not." "Kale." Arya turned to face him. "I know Dorian. He's a coward and a politician, but he's not a killer. If he wants to talk, it's because he has something to say that might help us." Kale's jaw was so tight Arya thought it might shatter. "I don't like this. I know. But trust me." It took a long moment, but finally Kale nodded. "I'm coming with you." They approached the tree line together, stopping just inside Bloodmoon territory. Dorian stepped forward to meet them, stopping at the neutral ground between. Up close, Arya could see how haggard he looked. Exhausted, worn down, like he'd been carrying a weight too heavy for too long. "What do you want?" Kale asked coldly. "To warn you," Dorian said. His eyes flicked to Arya. "Both of you, this isn't just about territory or refugees. My father has been planning this for years, since before Arya's rejection." "Planning what?" Arya demanded. "The elimination of Bloodmoon. He sees you," Dorian looked at Kale, "as an existential threat. A true alpha who rejects traditional pack hierarchy, who shows wolves they can choose their own path. He believes if he doesn't destroy you now, you'll eventually challenge the entire pack system, remake it in your image. And that's bad because..." Kale's voice was dangerously quiet. "Because it threatens his power. Threatens all their power." Dorian's voice dropped. "The 4 alphas made a pact. If they eliminate Bloodmoon, they divide your territory and resources. They remove the threat you represent, and strengthen their own positions. So they're breaking every law we have for political gain," Riley snarled. "Yes, but they'll justify it. They'll claim you've been sheltering rogues who've committed crimes, that you're building an army, that you're planning to attack. They'll lie and manipulate and twist the truth until they're the victims." "Why are you telling us this?" Arya asked. "What do you get out of betraying your father?" Dorian's laugh was bitter. "Betraying him? I've been his puppet my entire life. The dutiful son, the political tool, the wolf who gave up his mate for an alliance." His eyes locked on hers, and Arya saw genuine pain there. "I was wrong, Arya. About everything, and I don't expect forgiveness, I don't deserve it. But I can at least try to prevent more wolves from dying because of my father's ambition." "How do we know this isn't a trap?" Kale asked. "You don't." Dorian pulled out a sealed envelope. "But this contains details of their battle plans, force positions, and the location of a secret meeting tomorrow where the 4 alphas will finalize their strategy. If you can disrupt that meeting, expose their real intentions, you might have a chance." He held out the envelope. Kale didn't move. Arya stepped forward and took it. "Thank you." Dorian's eyes softened. "You look happy. Happier than you ever looked with me. He's good for you." "He sees me," Arya said simply. "Really sees me. Not what I could be useful for, or what political advantage I could provide. Just me. That's all you ever wanted, wasn't it? To be seen." Dorian's voice was thick with regret. "I'm sorry I couldn't give you that. I'm sorry for all of it." "I know," Arya said. And she did. She could see the sincerity in his eyes, the weight of his guilt. "But I'm not sorry anymore, because losing you led me here, to a place where I'm valued, to a pack that's real, to him." She didn't have to clarify who him was. Dorian's eyes went to Kale, and something resigned settled in his expression. "Take care of her," Dorian said. "She deserves that." "I know exactly what she deserves," Kale replied. "And I intend to give it to her, every day, for as long as she'll let me." Dorian nodded once, then retreated back into the shadows. Within moments, the Silvermoon forces pulled back, the probing attack ending as suddenly as it had begun. Back at the compound, they gathered in the war room and opened Dorian's envelope. Inside were detailed maps, force positions, and most damning of all, a signed agreement between the 4 Alphas to divide Blood Moon territory after its necessary elimination. "This is exactly what we need," Mira breathed. "Proof that they're acting in violation of pack law. If we can get this to the assembly, we need to do more than that," Kale said, studying the meeting location. "We need to catch them in the act, force them to admit their intentions publicly." "That's suicide," Riley protested. "The meeting is in Silvermoon territory, surrounded by their forces. You can't just walk in there." "I can if I invoke true Alpha right." Kale's smile was sharp. "As a true Alpha, I have the authority to demand an audience with any pack leadership regarding threats to regional stability. They have to grant it or risk their own standing with the assembly." "That's insanely risky," Finn said. "Everything about this situation is insane," Kale countered, "but it's our best shot. We go in openly, backed by irrefutable evidence, and we force them to either back down or reveal their real intentions in front of witnesses." "Who witnesses?" Sage asked. "Every pack we can reach in the next 12 hours. Kale was already moving, planning. "Send runners to every neutral pack in the region. Tell them a true Alpha is invoking ancient rites and they're invited to witness. Make it an event they can't ignore." "And if they still attack?" Arya asked quietly. Kale's eyes met hers across the table. "Then we fight. And we show them exactly why true Alphas are legendary." The next day, Blood Moon territory was surrounded not just by the 4 hostile packs, but by observers from a dozen neutral territories. Word had spread like wildfire. A true Alpha was making a stand, and nobody wanted to miss it. Kale prepared carefully, dressing in formal Alpha attire, black leather and silver chains that marked his rank. Around his neck, he wore the Blood Moon Alpha mark, a silver pendant shaped like a crescent moon that had been passed down for generations. Arya helped him with the clasps, her fingers steady despite her racing heart. "You know this could go very wrong." "It could," Kale agreed. "But it could also change everything. If we win this, if we prove that power built on choice and refuge is stronger than power built on domination, it changes the fundamental structure of how packs operate." "No pressure," Arya said, trying for humor. Kale caught her hands, holding them against his chest. "If something happens to me, don't." "If something happens," he continued firmly, "Riley becomes Alpha. She's prepared for it. And you keep doing what you've been doing. Keep being the voice for wolves who can't speak for themselves. Keep making this place a home." "Nothing's going to happen," Arya said fiercely. "You're going to walk in there, shame them in front of everyone, and walk back out victorious. Because you're Kale Blood Moon, true Alpha, and you don't lose." His smile was soft and genuine. "Is that an order from my advocate?" "It's a promise from your—" Arya paused, not sure what word to use. "Mate?" Kale supplied quietly. "Not in the bond sense, but in the choice sense. The chosen mate sense." Arya's breath caught. "Yes, your chosen mate. And I don't let my mate walk into danger without a very stern talking to about coming back safely." Kale kissed her then, deep and thorough and full of promise. "Then I'll come back safely. I have too much to live for now." An hour later, Kale walked toward the meeting location, with an escort of his strongest wolves, Riley, Finn, Sage, and Mira. Arya wanted desperately to go, but Kale had been firm. She needed to stay and coordinate the defense if things went wrong. So she stood on the compound walls with dozens of other Blood Moon wolves, watching as their Alpha walked into the heart of enemy territory, and she prayed to the Moon Goddess that he was right, that truth and justice and the bonds they built would be enough to win. Chapter 9. The True Alpha Stand. The meeting location was a large clearing in the heart of Silvermoon territory, neutral ground by tradition, though surrounded by hostile forces. Kale could feel the weight of hundreds of eyes on him as he walked forward, his escort flanking him in perfect formation. The 4 Alphas sat at a raised table like Judge's Thorn of Silvermoon in the center, flanked by Alpha Gerald of Ironwood, Alpha Cassian of Shadowfen, and Alpha Marcella of Nightshade. Behind them, Their most trusted advisors and warriors stood in formation, but they weren't alone. True to Kale's gambit, the clearing was ringed with observers, neutral pack representatives, elders from distant territories, even a few council mediators who'd arrived overnight. Someone had even brought a chronicler, an ancient wolf whose job was to record significant pack events for history. Good. Let history witness this. Alpha Kale Bloodmoon, Thorn said, his voice dripping with false courtesy. How gracious of you to accept our invitation. I didn't accept an invitation, Kale replied, his voice carrying across the clearing. I invoked true alpha right of audience, which you are bound by ancient law to grant. Let's not pretend this is a friendly meeting. A murmur went through the observers. Kale had just publicly called out the pretense, establishing that this was a confrontation, not a negotiation. Thorn's smile tightened. Very well, let's speak plainly. You undermine pack stability across the region by offering refuge without consequence. I offer refuge to wolves fleeing persecution, Kale corrected. There's a difference between a criminal and a wolf whose only crime was not fitting their pack's narrow definition of acceptable. Semantics, Alpha Cassian growled. He was a massive wolf, built like a mountain, with a reputation for brutality. You weaken pack bonds by teaching wolves they can simply leave when things get difficult. I teach wolves they have choices, Kale said. That pack should be built on mutual loyalty, not fear of exile or execution. If that threatens your power structure, perhaps you should examine why your wolves want to leave in the first place. Careful, pup, Alpha Gerald said, his voice cold. You may be a true alpha, but you're young and inexperienced. The four of us have been leading packs since before you were born. Then you've had plenty of time to learn better. Kale shot back. But instead, you've maintained systems that treat wolves as property, that punish difference, that value bloodline over character. And now that there's an alternative, you want to eliminate it rather than improve yourselves. The observers were murmuring louder now, some nodding, others looking uncomfortable. Kale was putting the four alphas on trial as much as they were trying to intimidate him. We have evidence, Alpha Marcella said, her voice sharp. She was the smallest of the four alphas, but reputedly the most cunning. Evidence that you've been building an army, that you plan to challenge the established pack order. Show it, Kale said simply. Marcella gestured, and a wolf brought forward a folder. Reports from multiple sources indicating unusual training activities, stockpiling of resources, recruitment of fighters from across the region. Of course we train, Kale said. We're wolves. Of course we stockpile resources. We have over 100 wolves to feed, and that number grows weekly as more refugees arrive. And yes, we recruit. We take in anyone who needs help, which includes fighters who were exiled for questioning unjust orders. He took a step forward, his alpha presence radiating outward. Several of the warriors behind the table actually stepped back. But let's talk about your evidence, Kale continued. How much of it comes from Silvermoon spies? How much of it is twisted truth designed to make defensive preparations look like offensive plans? How much is outright fabrication? These are baseless accusations, Thorn started. Are they? Kale pulled out Dorian's envelope. Because I have evidence too. Evidence of a secret pact between the four of you to divide Bloodmoon territory after our elimination. Evidence of coordinated military movements. Evidence of plans to manufacture justification for an unprovoked attack. He held up the documents, letting everyone see the seal's official marks from all four packs. These documents, Kale said, his voice ringing across the clearing, prove that this entire confrontation is built on lies. You're not here to enforce pack law or protect regional stability. You're here to eliminate a threat to your power. A threat that exists only because I dare to show wolves there's another way to live. The clearing erupted, observers shouting questions, the four alphas trying to regain control, warriors shifting nervously as the political situation spiraled. Where did you get those? Thorn roared, his alpha command crashing over the clearing like a wave. But Kale was a true alpha. The command washed over him like water. From someone with a conscience, Kale said. Someone who realized that murdering an entire pack of refugees to protect political power was a step too far. Thorn's face went purple with rage. Those documents are falsified. A transparent attempt to— They bear your seal. Kale interrupted. Your signature. The signatures of every alpha at this table. Unless you're claiming someone forged them? He looked around at the observers. I'm happy to submit them to neutral analysis. Are you? The silence was deafening. This is ridiculous, Alpha Gerald said, but his voice lacked conviction. Even if such documents existed, which they don't, the fact remains that your pack destabilizes the region. You're too powerful, too influential. A true alpha who rejects traditional hierarchy is a danger to everyone. Why? Kale asked simply. Why is choice a danger? Why is treating wolves with dignity a threat? Why is building power through loyalty rather than fear something to eliminate? Because it's not sustainable. Cassian exploded. Wolves need structure, need hierarchy, need strong leaders to tell them what to do. Your philosophy breeds chaos. My philosophy breeds family, Kale countered. Look at Blood Moon. We have wolves from a dozen different packs, all living in harmony. Rogues who were enemies now fight side by side. Exiles who thought they'd never belong anywhere have found home. That's not chaos, that's what real pack looks like. He turned to address the observers directly, cutting the 4 alphas out of the conversation entirely. I'm a true alpha, he said. Born with power I didn't ask for and didn't want. For years I tried to hide it, tried to just be normal, but I can't. And I've come to realize that maybe that's the point. He spread his arms, and his power rolled out not as an attack or a command, but as pure presence. Every wolf in the clearing could feel it, the weight of a true alpha in his element. True alphas appear when pack structures have become corrupt, Kale continued. When the systems meant to protect wolves start harming them instead. We're not supposed to maintain the status quo, we're supposed to challenge it. To remind everyone what pack is really supposed to be. And what is it supposed to be? One of the neutral pack representatives called out. Family by choice, Kale said simply. Not a prison you're born into. Not a hierarchy that crushes everyone beneath it, but a group of wolves who choose each other, who protect each other, who make each other stronger. That's what I've built in Blood Moon. And that's what terrifies these 4 alphas, not my power, but my example. The murmuring from the observers had shifted. Kale could see it in their faces, he was winning the political battle. The 4 alphas could see it too. Enough of this circus, Thorn snarled. He stood, and his 3 allies followed. True alpha or not, you're outnumbered and surrounded. Your pack is under siege. You can philosophize all you want, but reality is reality. Surrender Blood Moon territory and resources, or we'll take them by force. There it is, Kale said quietly, but his voice still carried. The truth laid bare. This was never about law or stability. It was always about power and greed. You want what I've built because it threatens what you've built. He turned back to the observers. I invoke the ancient right of assembly judgment. Let every pack here vote, is Blood Moon in violation of pack law? Or are these 4 alphas? It was a risky gambit. The assembly judgment was binding, whatever the observers voted would become law. But Kale had counted on one thing. Most of the neutral packs here were small, often pushed around by the larger, more powerful territories. They'd seen their own wolves leave to join Blood Moon. They'd heard the stories of refugees finding home. They knew which side was right. The vote was swift and decisive. 37 packs voted to condemn the 4 alphas' actions. Only 8 voted to support them, and those 8 were all client packs, smaller territories dependent on the larger ones for protection. The assembly has spoken, Kale said, his voice ringing with finality. Blood Moon is recognized as a sovereign pack acting within pack law. The siege is illegal and must be lifted immediately. Any attempt to attack us now will be considered an act of war against not just Blood Moon, but against the assembly itself. The 4 alphas looked like they'd been slapped. Their carefully constructed justification had crumbled. Their political cover had evaporated, but Thorn wasn't done yet. You think a vote changes reality? He snarled. You think words matter when we have 400 warriors surrounding your territory? We may lose political standing, but you'll still be dead. Try it, Kale said, and his voice dropped to something dangerous. Give the order. Attack a pack that's been voted innocent by assembly. See how many of your wolves follow that command once they understand they're committing a war crime. He could see the calculation in Thorn's eyes, the realization that Cale was right. Wolves followed orders, but they weren't mindless. With assembly judgment against them, with dozens of witnesses, with the truth exposed, how many Silvermoon wolves would actually be willing to attack? How many would question their alpha's orders for the first time? This isn't over, Thorn said, but it sounded like a retreat. Yes, it is, Cale countered. You lost. Not in combat, you lost the moral fight. Every wolf here now knows what you tried to do, why you tried to do it, and how far you were willing to go. Your own packs will question you. Your allies will distance themselves. Your power is broken, not by my strength, but by your own choices. He turned to leave, then paused. One more thing. The documents I showed today? I'm submitting copies to the Council of 5 Packs, to the Assembly Archives, and to every pack representative here. Let history record what happened when power-hungry alphas tried to destroy a pack whose only crime was showing wolves they could choose their own fate. As Cale walked away, his escort forming up around him, the clearing erupted in chaos behind him. Arguments, recriminations, the sound of alliances crumbling and political structures shifting. But Cale didn't look back. He'd won. The journey back to Blood Moon territory felt like walking through a dream. The siege forces were already pulling back when they arrived. Warriors who'd been told they were enforcing pack law suddenly realizing they'd been manipulated into an illegal attack. Some looked angry. Some looked relieved. All looked confused. The Blood Moon wolves waiting at the border erupted in cheers when they saw Cale returning unharmed. But Cale only had eyes for one wolf. Arya stood at the front of the crowd, her face streaked with tears, her entire body trembling. The moment Cale was within reach, she launched herself at him. He caught her, pulling her close, burying his face in her hair. You did it, she sobbed. You actually did it. We did it, Cale corrected. Every wolf who chose Blood Moon, who built this place, who believed in what we were creating, we did it together. The pack surged around them, a mass of celebrating wolves, howling their victory to the sky. Riley was crying and laughing simultaneously. Finn had Sage in a crushing hug. Mira was dancing with her former rogues, all of them grinning like children. They'd won. Not through violence, not through domination, but through truth and justice, and the power of wolves choosing to stand together. That night, the celebration lasted until dawn. Pack from across the region sent gifts and messages of support smaller territories thanking Blood Moon for standing up to the larger powers, refugees sending word that they were on their way, wolves from the attacking packs, quietly inquiring about asylum. The world was changing, and Blood Moon was at the center of it. But eventually, the celebration wound down. Wolves drifted off to their beds, exhausted but happy. The compound slowly quieted. Cale found Arya on the eastern wall, looking out over the forest that was now, finally, unequivocally theirs. Can't sleep? He asked, joining her at the railing. Too much adrenaline, Arya admitted. Too much everything. A month ago, I was nobody. Now I'm part of something that might actually change how packs work across the entire region. You're not part of something, Cale said gently. You're the reason it exists. If you hadn't stumbled across my border that night, broken and bleeding, and still brave enough to follow me into the unknown, I don't know if I would have found the courage to make my stand. You inspired me, Arya. She turned to face him, and in the moonlight, her eyes shimmered with emotion. You saved me. You saved me right back, Cale replied. Saved me from becoming so focused on building something I forgot to actually live. Reminded me that pack isn't just about structure and protection, it's about connection. About choosing someone and being chosen in return. He took her hands, holding them between his own. I told you before that I wanted to court you properly when this was over. That I wanted everyone to know you were mine, and I was yours. I remember, Arya whispered. The crisis is over. The pack is safe. We're recognized and protected. Cale's silver eyes held hers intently. So I'm asking now, formally, in front of the Moon Goddess, and anyone who wants to witness, Arya Blackwood, will you be my mate? Not because of any bond, Not because of biology or fate or political advantage, just because I choose you, and I want to spend every day for the rest of my life choosing you. Arya's breath caught. This was it, the moment that would define her future. A month ago, she'd been rejected, humiliated, destroyed by a bond that was supposed to be perfect and fated. Now she was being offered something better. Something real. Yes, she said, her voice strong and clear. Yes, I choose you. Today, and every day. Yes. Chaol's smile was brilliant. He pulled her into a kiss that was both celebration and promise, and Arya felt something settle in her chest. Not the forced heat of a mate bond, but something better. Something chosen. Something real. When they finally broke apart, both grinning like fools, Chaol pulled something from his pocket. I had this made, he said, holding up a necklace. It was simple but beautiful, a silver pendant shaped like a crescent moon intertwined with a star. The moon for blood moon, the star for you, because you showed me that even in the darkest night, there's still light if you know where to look. Arya's eyes filled with tears as he fastened it around her neck. The pendant settled just over her heart, right where the rejected bond scar still ached faintly. Perfect fit, Chaol murmured. They stood together on the wall, holding each other as the first rays of dawn broke over the horizon. Below them, their pack, their family slept peacefully, safe and protected. What happens now? Arya asked. The 4 alphas will be damaged, but they're not gone. There will be consequences to all this. There will. Chaol agreed. But we'll face them together. With a pack that chose to stand with us. With allies we didn't have before. With proof that another way is possible. And us? Arya looked up at him. What happens with us? We keep choosing each other, Chaol said simply. We build a life together. We help more wolves find home. We change the world one refugee at a time. He kissed her forehead gently. We be happy, Arya. Finally, we just be happy. Arya leaned into him, feeling the solid warmth of him, the steady beat of his heart, the rightness of being exactly where she was meant to be. A month ago, she'd lost everything. Now she'd found everything that actually mattered. Home, family, choice, love. And as the sun rose over Blood Moon territory, Arya smiled. Because sometimes, the best thing that can happen is being rejected by the wrong person. It frees you to be chosen by the right one. If Arya's journey from rejection to recognition moved you, if Chaol's stand for wolves who don't fit reminded you that real strength comes from lifting others up, subscribe. Join others who believe that sometimes, losing everything is the first step to finding what you were truly meant to have. Chapter 10. Chosen. 6 months later, the Blood Moon compound had transformed beyond recognition. What had once been a sturdy but simple settlement now sprawled across the valley, new buildings for the influx of refugees. A proper healing center that Vera commanded like a general, training grounds that could accommodate over 100 wolves at once. And at the heart of it all, a great hall, where the pack gathered for meals and meetings. But the most significant change wasn't structural, it was cultural. Blood Moon had become a symbol, a beacon, the pack that had stood up to power and won, the place where the rejected, the exiled, the forgotten, could find home, and they came in droves. Arya's office, now a proper building instead of a cramped room, was perpetually busy. Wolves seeking asylum, packs requesting advice on implementing similar policies, even other alphas quietly inquiring about how to build loyalty through choice rather than fear. The world was changing, slowly but surely. And Blood Moon was leading that change. You look tired, Riley said, poking her head into Arya's office late one afternoon. Have you eaten today? Arya looked up from the stack of applications she was reviewing. Is it afternoon already? It's almost evening. Come on, the pack's gathering for dinner. Chaol's been asking for you. At the mention of Chaol's name, Arya's lips curved into an involuntary smile. Even after 6 months of officially being together, the mention of him still made her heart skip. The great hall was already full when they arrived, over 200 wolves now called Blood Moon home, and the number grew weekly. Long tables were laden with food, and the air buzzed with conversation and laughter. Chaol stood at the head table, talking with Mira and Finn about something that made him laugh. The sound carried across the hall, warm and genuine, and several wolves turned toward it instinctively. He was still alpha, still powerful, but the weight he'd carried 6 months ago had eased. He looked happy. His eyes found Arya across the crowded hall, and his entire face lit up. He excused himself from the conversation and crossed to her, weaving through wolves who called greetings and touched his arm in passing. Casual familiarity that spoke of real affection, not just obedience. "There you are," he said, pulling her into a brief but thorough kiss that made several nearby wolves whistle. "I was about to send a search party. I was working," Arya protested, though she made no effort to pull away from his embrace. "You're always working. Delegate more. That's what you have me for." Kale's arms tightened around her waist. "Speaking of which, I have news." "Good news or concerning news?" "Good news. The Council of Five Packs officially recognized Blood Moon's asylum policies as legal and binding. Any pack that violates them will face council sanctions." Arya's breath caught. That's huge. It means what we've built here is now protected by the highest authority in the region. It means other packs will have to follow suit, or risk being seen as pariahs. It means we won, Arya. Completely and officially. Around them, wolves who'd overheard erupted in cheers. The news spread through the hall like wildfire, and soon the entire pack was celebrating. "Speech," someone called out. The cry was taken up by dozens of voices. "Speech, speech." Kale held up his hands for quiet, but he was smiling. All right. But only if Arya speaks with me. She's the one who made this possible." Arya tried to protest, but Kale pulled her up onto the raised platform beside him. The hall fell silent, 200 wolves, looking up at them with expressions of love and loyalty and trust. "6 months ago," Kale began, his voice carrying across the hall, "Blood Moon was under siege. 4 packs wanted us destroyed because we dared to show wolves they had choices. Today, the council has officially recognized what we've always known, that wolves deserve dignity, deserve choice, deserve to be valued for who they are." Cheers erupted, but Kale raised his hand again. "This victory belongs to all of you. Every wolf who chose to come here despite the danger. Every wolf who stood with us during the siege. Every wolf who believed that pack could be about love instead of fear." His eyes found Arya's. "But it started with one wolf, one rejected, broken, incredibly brave wolf who stumbled across our border and reminded me what we were fighting for." Arya felt tears prick her eyes as Kale turned to face her fully. "Arya Blackwood came to us with nothing. She'd been rejected, humiliated, cast out by wolves who should have protected her, and she could have let that break her permanently. Instead, she chose to rebuild. Chose to believe she had worth even when everyone told her she didn't. Chose to fight for other wolves who needed the same second chance." He took her hands, holding them in front of the entire pack. "You taught me that strength isn't about how much power you have. It's about what you choose to do with it. That the most courageous thing isn't fighting your enemies, it's believing you deserve better when everyone tells you to settle. That real love isn't fate or biology, it's a choice you make every single day." Kale dropped to one knee, and Arya's breath stopped. The entire hall went silent. "I've chosen you every day for 6 months, Kale said, his silver eyes shining. "And I want to choose you every day for the rest of my life. Not as my girlfriend or my companion, or even my chosen mate, as my wife, my partner, my equal in all things." He pulled out a ring, simple silver with a single diamond, that caught the light like a star. "Arya Blackwood, will you marry me?" Arya couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only feel the overwhelming rightness of this moment standing before her pack, her family, being offered forever by the wolf who'd saved her life by giving her a reason to save herself. "Yes," she whispered. Then louder, her voice ringing across the hall. Yes, I'll marry you." The hall exploded in cheers as Kale slipped the ring onto her finger and stood, pulling her into a kiss that was witnessed by every wolf they'd fought to protect. When they finally broke apart, both grinning through tears, the pack was chanting, "Luna, Luna, Luna," because that's what Arya would be now, not just advocate, but Luna, the alpha's mate and equal partner in leading the pack. "Think you're ready for this?" Kale murmured against her ear as the cheering continued. "I think I've been ready since that first night," Arya replied. "I just didn't know it yet." 3 months later, the mating ceremony was held on the night of the full moon, in the same clearing where Kale had fought for Arya's freedom. But this time, the clearing was decorated with flowers and lights, filled with wolves from dozens of packs, all of them there to witness not a trial by combat, but a celebration of love. Arya stood at the edge of the clearing in a simple white dress that Riley had helped her choose, her hands trembling as she looked out at the assembled wolves. So many faces, pack members who'd become family, refugees she'd personally helped integrate, even a few wolves from Silvermoon, including, surprisingly, Celeste. Her sister had arrived 2 days ago, carrying a message from their mother, an apology years too late, but still genuine. Arya had accepted it gracefully but declined the invitation to visit. Silvermoon was her past. Bloodmoon was her future. "Ready?" Riley asked, appearing beside her in a deep blue dress that matched her eyes. As Arya's maid of honor, she'd been fussing over every detail for weeks. "Terrified," Arya admitted. "But in a good way. That's how you know it's real," Riley said, squeezing her hand. "When the fear is about how much you want something, not about whether you should want it at all." The ceremony music began, wolves howling in harmony, creating a haunting melody that raised goosebumps on Arya's arms. It was time. Arya walked into the clearing, and every eye turned to her. But she only saw one person. Kale stood at the center, dressed in traditional Alpha ceremony, clothes black leather and silver, with the Blood Moon Alpha pendant around his neck. But on his face was an expression of such pure love and joy that it made Arya's chest ache. As she walked toward him, Arya thought about the journey that had led here, the rejection that had destroyed her, the flight through the forest, the moment Kale had offered her his jacket and his protection, every choice, every challenge, every moment of pain and growth. It had all led to this. She reached Kale and took his outstretched hands. His grip was warm and solid and sure. "You're beautiful," he whispered. "You're biased," she whispered back. "Absolutely." His grin was unrepentant. The ceremony was officiated by Aemon, the same ancient wolf who'd presided over Kale's trial by combat. His voice carried across the clearing as he spoke the traditional words about pack bonds and mate bonds and the intertwining of two souls. But when it came time for their vows, Kale and Arya had written their own. "I, Kale Bloodmoon," Kale began, his voice steady and strong, "swear to choose you every day for the rest of my life. To see you when you feel invisible, to value you when others don't, to stand beside you in strength, and to catch you when you fall. I swear to build a life with you that honors both who we are individually and who we become together. You are my choice, my partner, my equal, my love. Today and always." Arya's throat was tight with emotion as she began her own vows. "I, Arya Blackwood, swear to choose you every day for the rest of my life. To trust you with my heart even when I'm scared, to challenge you when you're wrong and support you when you're right, to build with you a home that's not just walls and territory, but love and acceptance and belonging. You saw worth in me when I couldn't see it myself. You gave me a reason to fight when I wanted to give up. You are my choice, my partner, my equal, my love. Today and always. By the power vested in me by the Council of Pax and the Moon Goddess herself," Aemon declared, "I pronounce you Alpha and Luna, mates by choice, partners for life. You may seal your bond." Kale pulled Arya into a kiss that started gentle but deepened quickly, full of promise and passion and all the days to come. The pack howled their approval, the sound rising to the moon like a prayer of gratitude. When they finally broke apart, both breathless and grinning, Aemon raised his arms. "I present to you Alpha Kale and Luna Arya of Bloodmoon Wolves, who proved that the strongest bonds aren't forced by fate, but chosen by free hearts." The celebration that followed lasted 3 days. Wolves from across the region came to pay their respects, to offer gifts, to see for themselves the pack that had changed everything. The 4 alphas who'd tried to destroy Bloodmoon were notably absent. Thorn had been forced to step down by his own pack after the truth came out, and the others were struggling to maintain their authority in the wake of the scandal. But Arya barely noticed. She was too busy dancing with her pack, laughing with Riley, being spun around the clearing by Finn, who was surprisingly graceful for such a large wolf, and stealing kisses with her new husband whenever they had a moment alone. On the third night, as the last of the guests were departing and the pack was winding down, Kale found Arya sitting by the bonfire that had burned continuously throughout the celebration. "Luna Arya," he said, settling beside her and pulling her against his side. "How does it feel?" "Surreal," Arya admitted, leaning into his warmth. "6 months ago I was nobody. Now I'm Luna of the most talked about pack in the region." "You were never nobody," Kale corrected gently. "You just hadn't found the people who could see you yet." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the flames dance and the stars wheel overhead. "I got a message from Dorian," Arya said quietly. "He's left Silvermoon. Rejected Elena and exiled himself. Said he couldn't live in the pack anymore, knowing what his father had tried to do." "How do you feel about that?" Arya considered the question. "Sad for him, I think, but not responsible. He made his choices, and now he has to live with them. Just like I made mine." "Any regrets?" Kale asked. "About your choices?" Arya turned to look at him, this wolf who'd saved her, who'd fought for her, who'd chosen her every single day. She thought about the bond that had been broken, about the pain and humiliation she'd endured, and she realized that she wouldn't change a single thing, because all of it, every moment of pain, every tear, every instance of feeling worthless had led her here. To this pack, to this life, to this love. "Not a single one," she said firmly. "Being rejected was the best thing that ever happened to me. It freed me to be chosen." Kale's smile was soft and warm. "Then I guess I should thank Dorian for being too stupid to see what he had, because his loss was definitely my gain." He kissed her, slow and sweet, and Arya felt the last tiny scar where her bond with Dorian had been finally fade to nothing. Not because it was replaced by another bond, but because she'd healed completely. She was whole on her own, and she'd chosen to share that wholeness with someone who valued it. That was better than any mate bond could ever be. 1 year later. Arya stood in her office, much larger now, with a staff of 3 to help handle the constant influx of asylum requests, reviewing the latest reports. Blood Moon had grown to over 300 wolves. They'd had to expand into the next valley, building new settlements while maintaining the tight-knit community feel that made the pack special. Other packs had started implementing similar policies: open asylum for persecuted wolves, choice-based pack membership, leadership built on respect rather than fear. The 4 alphas who'd tried to destroy Blood Moon had all been replaced by younger, more progressive leaders. The world was changing. And Blood Moon had lit the spark. A knock on her door made her look up. Riley poked her head in, grinning. "There's someone here to see you. Says it's urgent." Arya sighed, setting down her papers. "Another asylum seeker?" "Not exactly. Come see for yourself." Curious, Arya followed Riley to the main hall. Standing there, looking nervous and out of place, was a young she-wolf she didn't recognize. The girl couldn't have been more than 19, with tangled hair and clothes that had seen better days. But it was her eyes that caught Arya's attention. They held the same desperate hope Arya had felt the night she'd stumbled across Blood Moon's border. "I'm Luna Arya," Arya said gently, approaching slowly so as not to spook the girl. "What's your name?" "Sage," the girl whispered. "No, wait, that's not right. I'm nobody. I heard about this place. That you take in wolves who don't fit. Who've been rejected." Arya's heart clenched. She knew that tone, that posture, that desperate need to belong somewhere, anywhere. "You're not nobody," Arya said firmly. "You're Sage, and you're here, and that makes you someone. Can you tell me what happened?" The story spilled out: a mate bond rejected for political reasons, a family who disowned her, a pack that had exiled her for being difficult. All the pain and humiliation that Arya remembered so vividly from her own experience. When the girl finished, tears streaming down her face, Arya pulled her into a hug. "You're safe now," Arya murmured. "You're home." "Just like that?" the girl asked, pulling back with disbelief. "You don't need to check my background or make sure I'm not dangerous or—" "You came here seeking help," Arya said simply. That's enough. Welcome to Blood Moon, Sage. Welcome home. As she helped the girl get settled, arranging housing, food, introducing her to other pack members who'd been through similar experiences, Arya caught sight of Kale watching from across the compound. He smiled at her and mouthed, "I love you." She smiled back. "I love you too." Because this helping wolves like she'd been helped, offering home to those who'd lost everything, building a place where worth wasn't determined by bloodline or perfection but by simple existence. This was what she was meant to do. Being rejected had destroyed her, but being chosen, choosing herself, choosing her pack, choosing love on her own terms, had rebuilt her into something stronger, and now she got to help others do the same. That night, Arya and Kale lay in bed in their quarters, wrapped in each other's arms, listening to the peaceful sounds of the pack settling in for the night. "Another one saved," Kale murmured, pressing a kiss to her temple. "How many does that make?" "I stopped counting after 200, Arya admitted. "But each one matters. Each one is a wolf who gets a second chance. Like you got. Like we both got," Arya corrected. "You could have been the monster your father wanted you to be. Instead, you chose to be something better." "We chose," Kale said. "Together. We're stronger together." Arya shifted to look at him, her hand coming up to trace the scar through his eyebrow, a reminder of his own struggles, his own journey. "Do you ever think about how different things would be if I hadn't crossed your border that night?" she asked. "All the time," Kale admitted. "I'd still be building something, but it wouldn't be this, wouldn't be home. Because you're the one who showed me that pack isn't just about protection, it's about belonging. You gave me that gift. You gave it to me first. Then we're even." He pulled her closer, and Arya could feel his heartbeat steady and strong against her cheek. "Though I'd argue I got the better deal." "I got you, sap," Arya teased. "Only for you." They drifted toward sleep, safe and warm and loved. Outside, their pack slept peacefully, hundreds of wolves who'd found home in a place built on the radical idea that everyone deserved to be valued. And in the morning, there would be more wolves to help, more lives to rebuild, more proof that rejection wasn't an ending. It was a beginning. Because sometimes, the universe breaks you down completely, not to destroy you, but to give you the chance to rebuild yourself into something better. And Arya had rebuilt herself into someone who could look back at that night of rejection, at Dorian's cold eyes and the pack's mocking laughter, and the shattering of everything she'd thought was her destiny, and feel only gratitude, because that night had set her free. Free to find real love, real pack, real home. Free to be chosen by someone who saw her worth even when she couldn't see it herself. Free to choose him right back, every single day, for the rest of their lives. That was worth every moment of pain it took to get here. If Arya's transformation from invisible to invaluable inspired you, if Kale's vision of pack as chosen family rather than forced hierarchy resonated, if this story reminded you that rejection can be redirection toward something infinitely better, subscribe. Because stories of wolves who rebuild themselves after being broken, who choose love over fate, who prove that worth is inherent, not earned, are worth sharing. Thank you for joining us on this journey from rejection to recognition, from broken to whole, from lost to found. Welcome home.